Chapter 40-51. Since that's the case, there's no need to care about this matter. They're just courting death. Tang Gua had never put Zhou Xian and Tang Si in her eyes. These two were real vampires. Without blood for them to suck, they were nothing. Don't stop them. Like I said before, don't ask about anything related to Zhou Guan. Zhou Xian agreed, don't worry. My mother is doing very well now. Why would she care about those small matters? Moreover, she's using this as an excuse to help Big Brother build a good relationship with the other families. Old Madam can't find an excuse to blame her. Old Madam Zhou liked Zhou Guan, but she cared more about the big Zhou family. As Zhou Xian spoke, he suddenly noticed that there was something written on a piece of paper on Tang Gua's table. He couldn't help but walk over to take a look. After reading it, he blinked. People from the mountains. You're a mountain person. Zhou Xian's heart was beating very fast. Previously, he only knew that Tang Guo liked to write some things, but he had never seriously looked at it. This time, when he sat beside her, he accidentally saw it. Surprised. Surprised, but after being surprised, I feel that this is how it should be. Zhou Xian couldn't help but say, what kind of treasure are you? If people outside knew that the mountain person is you, especially those people who usually scold you, I don't know if their faces would be swollen. System, as expected of the big cutie, they actually thought of the same thing. Every time the literature tea party would invite this mountain person, and only Su Chongxing knew the mountain person's address. Su Chongxing knew the mountain person's address, but he didn't know Miss Tang Gua's address. Tang Gua only sang in Xianle and didn't interact with those people. Thus, the news that she was a mountain person was never known by anyone. Tang Gua decided that the next time Su Chongxing invited her to the literature tea party, she would go. Xiao Gua, let's discuss something. Zhou Xian's sudden change in attitude made Tang Gua curious. Aren't you always very direct? What is it? Do you know what happened in the end of Beauties in Troubled Times that you wrote? I can only watch a little bit of each episode. It's so frustrating. Zhou Xian's face was full of anticipation. Give me some spoilers. I promise I won't tell anyone else. System, what a joke. Dear host, this guy's motive for getting close to you isn't simple. It turns out that he wants to see your drafts. Tang Gua pursed her lips and smiled. She had written a lot of manuscripts. She opened the drawer and there were many manuscripts inside. Take it and have a look. System, this benefit is really not bad. While Zhou Xian was reading Tang Gua's drafts, something happened to the Zhou family. The reason was that old Madame Zhou had already found a girl for Zhou Guan. She even told Zhou Guan that if the girl was suitable, he could get engaged first. Old Madame Zhou was also helpless. She couldn't make decisions for Zhou Ji and Zhou Xian. She had a grudge with her two grandsons, so she could only help Zhou Guan arrange a marriage. When Zhou Guan heard that the girl was from which family, he was dissatisfied. He directly yelled at old Madame Zhou, I already said that I like Cici. If I want to marry someone, I will only marry Cici. I won't marry anyone else. I won't see her. Other than Cici, I don't want anyone else. Zhou Guan's rebellious behavior finally angered old Madame Zhou. She kept lecturing him. At that time, Zhang Langyue was beside him. She advised Zhou Guan not to be impulsive and to speak properly. Old Madame Zhou didn't think that Tang Guo was good. How could a poor girl compare to the rich young miss she had chosen? Don't think that you can arrange my life. I'm really unhappy being the young master of the Zhou family. If you want to stop me, then I won't be. I'll scram, okay? After speaking, Zhou Guan ran away. He didn't see Zhang Lanyue's pale face. She seemed to be very anxious. Peak. Chapter 4052. Old Madame Zhou was furious that Zhou Guan had run away without thinking about the consequences. When she saw Zhang Lanhua standing at the side, she was so angry that she caught her and scolded her. Zhang Lanhua felt wronged, but she didn't dare to refute. She could only endure old Madame Zhou's harsh words. In the afternoon, Mrs. Zhou and the others came back. When they heard about the incident, they looked at each other and went to greet old Madame Zhou. Old Madame Zhou looked at the two dignified brothers, Zhou Ji and Zhou Xian, and then looked at the educated and reasonable Mrs. Zhou. She felt a little better. I shouldn't have brought her back. Ever since she entered the Zhou family, Guan has become more and more disobedient. Old Madame Zhou didn't think that her grandson was bad. The bad ones were all outsiders. Right now, she couldn't do it. If Zhou Guan found out about Zhang Lanhua being chased out of the Zhou family, it would be a joke if word got out that Zhang Lanhua was chased out. Mrs. Zhou didn't say anything bad about Zhang Lanhua and her son. She only cared about old Madame Zhou and asked her to take care of herself. She also said that Zhou Guan was still young and would understand her pains in the future. Every word she said was very pleasing to the ears. In the end, old Madame Zhou didn't have anything to say. Mrs. Zhou also said that the madams from other families had invited her recently. What she meant was that she had to do big things every day and didn't have time to discipline Zhou Guan. Old Madame Zhou had nothing to say about this. Thinking about it carefully, Zhou Guan wouldn't listen to Mrs. Zhou, so she had to give up. After Zhou Guan ran out of the Zhou family, he hung out with his friends from all walks of life. Every day, he was intimate with Tang Si. Everyone knew that he was the young master of the Zhou family, so he was more popular. When Tang Si knew that Zhou Guan ran out of the house after a big fight, she comforted him. They don't understand you. Their thinking is old-fashioned. What era is it now? They still believe in matching families, parents' orders, and matchmakers' words. We really like each other, and we don't hinder others. I like you, not because you're the young master of the Zhou family. Of course, Zhou Guan believed her. When they liked each other, he wasn't the young master of the Zhou family. Don't worry, CC. I won't compromise on this matter. Whoever wants to be the young master of the Zhou clan can go ahead. I don't care at all. Just like that, Zhou Guan returned to his old house. Tang Si often went to visit him. Old Madame Zhou sent people to invite him several times, but Zhou Guan refused to budge. He even said that if old Madame Zhou insisted on interfering with his marriage, he would never go back. In short, he wanted to marry Tang Si. Old Madame Zhou was furious, especially after she found out that Tang Si was Tang Guo's younger sister. Even though they had severed ties, she still panicked. Even if he were to take care of Zhou Guan's marriage, he would never allow Zhou Guan to be with Tang Si. He even said that if Zhou Guan was disobedient, he could forget about returning to the Zhou family. Zhang Lanhua accidentally heard this and went to the old house to find Zhou Guan. Tang Si happened to be there, so she told the two of them the latest news. After hearing this, Tang Si's expression turned ugly. I was wondering why the old madam was so against it. So it's her. There's some news that you might not know. In the beginning, the young master often went to Xianles to see Tang Guo. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the young master had taken a fancy to her. Zhang Lanhua said what she knew. Later on, for some reason, the young master stopped going. The Peak. Chapter 4053. Then came the second young master, also known as Tang Guo. He would attend every performance and was much more high profile than the first young master. I heard that the relationship between the second young master and her is still unclear. Madame Dowager made it clear that she would never let Tang Guo marry into the Zhou family. Zhang Lanhua sighed. Madame Dowager is unhappy with Tang Guo, and that's why you guys are implicated. How can Madame Dowager like someone who can charm the two young masters of the Zhou family? They all felt that it was Tang Guo who had implicated them. However, they forgot that Madame Dowager didn't know about this relationship at first. She didn't like Tang Si and never wanted her to be her granddaughter-in-law. They all chose to lose their memories and thought that the root cause was Tang Guo. Tang Si, in particular, was furious to the extreme. She blamed all the grievances she had suffered during this period of time on Tang Guo. Tang Guo, who lived her own life every day, didn't know that Tang Si already resented her. Later, Zhang Lanhua tested Madame Dowager in front of Madame Dowager, but she had no intention of letting go. Zhou Guan felt that as long as Madame Dowager didn't agree, he wouldn't go. He even decided that after Tang Si finished her studies, they would get married and live in the old house. Zhang Lanhua agreed. It wasn't entirely true that she liked Tang Si very much. She couldn't tell that she didn't like Tang Si. She just didn't want a daughter-in-law from a high family. She didn't come from a good family and her daughter-in-law's family was too good. It would affect her status. Tang Si was just right. She was innocent and came from an ordinary family. The most important thing was that they could talk about it. Tang Si respected her and liked her son. Also, Zhang Lanhua felt that Madame Dowager would never give up on Zhou Guan. Even if Zhou Guan married Tang Si, Madame Dowager would at most be angry, but she wouldn't really chase Zhou Guan out. Therefore, Zhou Guan would definitely have a share of the Zhou family's assets. Perhaps in the future, when they split up, Zhou Guan would be able to live separately. At that time, they would be able to control the assets themselves. Therefore, she agreed with Zhou Guan's decision. If Tang Si married Zhou Guan after she finished her studies and had a grandson, Madame Dowager's attitude would be better. It's happening again. Did you notice something? Feng Huai would occasionally come to look for Tang Yuxing. Tang Yuxing's talent was not considered good, but his paintings were filled with spiritual energy. Feng Huai really wanted to witness the birth of a great painter. But for some reason, in the past half a year, he could no longer see that kind of spiritual energy in Tang Yuxing's paintings. Feng Huai, what's wrong? Tang Yuxing was confused. Feng Huai said, again, your painting is not like the original. Tang Yuxing's expression changed slightly, but he still asked patiently, did you see anything? There's no more spiritual energy. Feng Huaiji said, not only did your standard not improve, it even regressed. I really want to find a story from your paintings, but I can't find it. You gave birth again. Did it affect you in some way? With your level, you shouldn't be like this. Although it seems like your drawing skills have improved, if you look at it carefully, it's no different from following a script. You don't have your own soul. Tang Yuxing's face paled, and he couldn't help but tighten his grip on the paintbrush. Feng Huai shook his head. I heard that you've recently accepted a job to help people with their decorative paintings. Tang Yuxing was silent. Yes, he had accepted it. Because just being an art teacher was not enough to cover his expenses. Besides, didn't Feng Huai say that no matter what he painted, it was all art? He was just trying. Although you and Miss Tang are both helping people decorate their rooms, it's different. Miss Tang is doing art, and what you're doing is copying. The Peak. Chapter 4054. Tang Yuxing was infuriated. After holding it in for a long time, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore. Aren't they all the same? Why can she do it but I can't? I've seen the room you decorated and the works inside. Don't you think you're imitating Miss Tang unconsciously? Yuxing, there's nothing wrong with imitating paintings. The mistake is that you can't find your own direction by blindly imitating others. You even think that imitating others' things is your own work. In other words, you're a little imitative. Feng Huai liked art and was indeed very capable when it came to appreciating paintings. But at the same time, he didn't like Tang Yuxing's current behavior. The other party seemed to have gone crazy. Tang Yuxing's biggest problem was that he hated Tang Gua in his heart. However, Tang Gua's works always impacted his brain every time he saw them, causing him to unconsciously imitate them. In the end, he ended up as a nobody. As a painter, he should form his own style because everyone's understanding was different. Piecing together other people's things would only destroy his own talent. Feng Huai was scolded out by Tang Yuxing. He shook his head and left, feeling that he might not come here again. He wanted to wake Tang Yuxing up, but the other party seemed to be trapped and couldn't walk out. For this reason, he even specially looked into Tang Yuxing and Tang Gua's past. He also came back from studying abroad, and he was Tang Yuxing's classmate before he studied abroad. He didn't know much about the family Tang. Therefore, after seeing the truth, Feng Huai was a little annoyed and didn't want to look for Tang Yuxing anymore. Uncle, it seems like I should pay more attention to the outside world. Feng Huai had to admit that he had misjudged him. His impression of Tang Yuxing was still before he studied abroad. At that time, they were both half-grown children. A certain principal laughed. The reason why I didn't tell you is because I know that you're prone to being stubborn. You'll only turn back when you discover the truth. If I had a sister like Miss Tang, I'd wake up smiling from my dreams, Feng Huai expressed his thoughts. The principal chuckled. Do you think that with a sister like her, you can admire all kinds of paintings for free and ask her to get you any room you want? Uncle, boys don't act coquettishly. Feng Huai shook his head. It should be called pleasing. Feng Huai changed the topic. Uncle, do you have any of Miss Tang's works? Take it out and let me admire it. Scram, no. Feng Huai, what a pity. By the way, there will be a tea party in a while. It will include music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. If you are interested, you can go and take a look. You might be able to find someone you're interested in. A certain principal thought of this. By the way, I heard from Su Chongqing that he invited people from the mountains. People from the mountains. Feng Huai's eyes lit up, then he shook his head. Haven't we invited him every year, but he never showed up. It's different this time, the headmaster said excitedly. The people in the mountains have agreed. They wrote back saying that they will attend. Feng Huai's eyes widened. He couldn't miss this opportunity. If the people in the mountains hadn't agreed, do you think it would be so grand this time? Many families are sponsoring this tea party. It will be very lively this time. Who doesn't want to see the true face of the mountain people? The news that the mountain people were going to show up at the tea party spread like wildfire, and even many newspapers published the news. Vertex. Chapter 40-55. In the end, the location of the tea party had to be changed. They chose a bigger venue. Of course, in order to get rid of the tea party, other than a few spots sponsored by a few families, the others had to show their true abilities. Not only did they have to show a live performance to get tickets, they had to at least show their previous works. Actually, the threshold wasn't high. There was a place to publish a newspaper article, a poem, a painting, or a piece of music. When the news of the mountain people's participation in the tea party came out, countless scholars in High City were excited. Among them was Tang Yushu, a loyal fan of the mountain people. He was brimming with a happy smile. To him, the tickets were simple. He didn't publish many articles in the newspaper, but it wasn't a small number either. Other than the articles criticizing the singers and performers, there were also some other articles. When he returned home, he told the others about the news and asked Tang Yuxing if Tang Si wanted to go. Of course I want to go, Tang Si said. Fortunately, I published a few poems, so I can use them to exchange for tickets. Yuxing. Tang Yushu saw his gloomy expression. You haven't been in a good state recently. Just take it as a break. It's easy for you to get tickets. Any work will do. Tang Yuxing didn't refuse and nodded. Okay. He really didn't want to miss such an occasion. Ever since he had a job, his status in the family had skyrocketed. However, there was Tangua's influence that caused him to be restless all day. Every time he drew a work, he couldn't help but compare it to Tangua's. This comparison completely made him lose confidence. The main reason for his unbalanced mentality was that once Tangua was interviewed and revealed how long she had been learning to draw. He had been learning since he was young, but Tangua had only learned for a few years. She had achieved so much. She was a true genius. Every time he saw Tangua, he felt his face hurt and couldn't leave. A singer who had learned to draw for a few years had reached a level that he could only look up to. How could he not be unbalanced? In the past, when he saw Tangua, he would always think of him being scolded for sucking his sister's blood. Now that he saw Tangua, his face burned. How could he not compare to a singer? Xiaogua, there's a ruckus outside because of the mountain people. Zhou Xian had been paying attention to this. This time, it's sponsored by various families. A few people from the news agencies will be there. They all want to wait for big news. I can already imagine what kind of impact you will bring to them when you appear in front of them. Zhou Xian revealed a mischievous smile. I'm really looking forward to it. I've long since found those bastards who scolded you an eyesore. We can't fight those who talk big. I'm looking forward to it too. Wei Tangua smiled. Chapter 4056. The tea party that everyone was looking forward to was about to begin. Before the sun rose in the morning, people had already arrived at the venue for the tea party. The three family Tang siblings only arrived at dawn. With their tickets, they could easily enter. It was their first time seeing such a big tea party. There were familiar faces that they recognized, as well as people that they had only seen in the newspapers. There were also representatives of several large families. The three of them were very excited. Even the haze in Tang Yuxing's heart was swept away. System, don't worry. Dark clouds will gather again soon. When Tangua arrived, there were already many people. Those who knew each other had formed a small circle and were chatting and laughing. There were also some people who were exchanging poems and paintings, showing off their talents and receiving everyone's cheers. Tangua's appearance naturally attracted a lot of attention. She came in with Zhou Xian's arm. The moment she came in, she was the center of attention. She was very used to such occasions. This time was different from the previous times. The people here did not dare to say that she was not qualified to come to the tea party. If she was not qualified to come, then there were probably not many people left here. Tangua was proficient in several popular foreign languages and could play various Western musical instruments. She had an amazing talent in painting and was also a house decorator. She was also acquainted with those people from the large families. Those students who had attended Tangua's classes called her Teacher Tang. After so much time, most of the students were convinced by Tangua. They did not look down on her. Instead, they were full of admiration and wished that she could return to school to teach a few more classes. Tangua nodded to them one by one and then walked towards those familiar faces. Su Chongqing was also standing with the representatives of the large families. When he saw her arrival, he was very happy. At this time, Su Chongqing still did not know that Tang Guo was from the mountains. However, Tang Guo's talent was still very important to him. This was a woman who was not restrained by the times. The brilliance that bloomed from her dazzled countless people. Tang Si and the other two's faces stiffened. However, when they saw the people beside Tang Guo, they did not dare to do anything rash. If they dared to cause trouble today, they could forget about staying here. They also realized that Tang Guo didn't seem to see them. She was furious. Unknowingly, most of the people had arrived at the tea party. Countless people were still looking at the door, anticipating the arrival of the mountain people. However, they waited and waited, but there was no sign of the legendary mountain man. Most importantly, the people here were all familiar faces if one were to connect the dots. The person in the mountains had not shown himself, so he should be a new face. Perhaps he was an old man with an extraordinary bearing. Su Chongqing, didn't you say that the people in the mountains are back? What is it? Su Chongqing was also sweating profusely. He didn't think that people from the mountains would go back on their word, but no one at the scene looked like they were from the mountains, so he couldn't make up his mind. At this moment, Zhou Xian opened his mouth with a mischievous smile. We don't know who the person in the mountains is. She might be hiding among us. Since she had promised to come, she would definitely keep her word. Why don't we invite the people from the mountains to talk? Su Chongqing nodded in agreement, not noticing Zhou Xian's strange expression. Second young master, you're very interested. Tang Guo whispered. They'll be played to death by you. How can they be played to death by me? Shouldn't they be played to death by you? Just wait and see. In a while, they'll be looking for their own eyeballs all over the ground. After discussing with the representatives, Su Chongqing picked up the microphone and said, First of all, I would like to welcome everyone here. Next, let's invite the long-awaited Mr. Mountain people to say a few words for us. The Peak. Chapter 4057. Su Chongqing's voice resounded throughout the tea party. The originally noisy tea party instantly quieted down and everyone turned to look at him. Everyone present was nervous. It could be said that many of the people who came here today had admired the mysterious mountain man for a long time and wanted to see his true face. Even Su Chongqing was a loyal fan of the mountain man. In fact, he once had the opportunity to discover the identity of the mountain man, but he was too busy and came into contact with so many new things every day that he forgot about that small note. The scene was very quiet. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Amidst everyone's nervous and excited hearts, Tang Guo finally moved. She let go of Zhou Xian's arm and walked towards Su Chongqing. Everyone was stunned, but they didn't stop her. When she walked to Su Chongqing's side, she stood there and said, Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to meet you. What? What did she mean? Everyone took a deep breath. Their minds were confused and they really wanted to pull Tang Guo down. Tang Yushu was so angry that his face turned red. If it wasn't for the fact that this was the wrong place, or perhaps because he was afraid of being slapped in the face every time, he didn't want to be the one to stand out. After the confusion, everyone stood there stiffly, waiting for Tang Guo's next words. Su Chongqing was also stunned. He turned his head to look at Tang Guo. Tang Guo smiled at him. I'm very sorry for rejecting Mr. Su's many invitations. Because the tea party's schedule conflicted with mine, I couldn't come to the tea party. Zhou Xian, excuse. System, excuse. Although it was such a coincidence, Xiaoguo was the brand of Xianless. Qin Jingyuan gave her a lot of face. It was no problem for her to take a few days off. This time, everyone came back to their senses. Did she mean that she was from the mountain man? What kind of joke was this? How could she be from the mountain man? How could she write such passionate poems and articles? How could she write about the feelings of children in troubled times? The words of the mountain people were never monotonous. They were gloomy and despairing, but they were also inspiring. More likely, they were exciting and gave people hope. Even though they were living in troubled times, they could still find new hope in the words of the people in the mountains. The people in the mountains scolded this world, but they also loved it. So, how could the person in the mountains be a singer? Even though this singer was different from other singers. Even if she was talented, how could she be the person they had admired for so long? He couldn't accept it. Especially those scholars who had once scolded the singers. They couldn't accept it at all, as if the corner of their dreams had collapsed. Tang Xi's eyes widened and she couldn't help but take a few steps back. She was still muttering to herself, how is this possible? Tang Yuxing's expression was numb. In the past few days, he had already lost himself in her outstanding performance. When he heard that Tang Guo was from the mountains, he was surprisingly calm. It wasn't that he wasn't angry, but that he didn't have the strength to show it. The better she was, the more incompetent and stupid he was. If Tang Guo was the sun, then he would be a firefly in the night. He wasn't even a star. Tang Yuxing broke down. His face flushed red and the veins on his forehead bulged. He glared at Tang Guo with bloodshot eyes and suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, you're from the mountains. How could you be from the mountains? The peak. Chapter 40-58. Ha ha ha, you're just a singer. How can you be from the mountains? How can I be? You're just a singer. How can you insult the name of the mountain? Tang Yushu seemed to have lost his mind. He laughed and cried at the same time. He even took out the newspaper clippings, which were all poems and articles published by the mountain people. As he spoke, he raised the newspaper clippings and looked at Tang Guo hatefully. You imposter, get out of here. How can you be from the mountains? Tell me, why are you trying to steal the name of the mountain people? You're indeed a vain singer. How dare you try to steal the name of Mr. Mountain People? However, the people present did not follow Tang Yushu's lead. In fact, after Tang Guo had shown so many talents, only a few people hated Tang Guo. Her paintings were called works of art. She was fluent in several languages and could play Western musical instruments. How many scholars could compare to her? She was also a teacher. Even if the identity of a singer was looked down upon, the halo around her was enough to cover up this small shortcoming. And those who liked to listen to Tang Guo's songs and attended almost every performance actually thought that the identity of a singer was no longer a shortcoming for her. I believe that she's from the mountains, said Feng Hui. Feng Hui had just recovered from the shock and his face was flushed. Unlike Tang Yushu, he was excited, happy, and excited. When did he go to listen to Tang Guo's songs? It was on the day she first went to school as a teacher. After seeing her works, he couldn't help but learn more about it. In the end, he was convinced by her talent. Only those who had listened to her songs would understand how amazing she was. The songs that she performed were no longer about love and love. However, many people subconsciously looked down on singers and neglected this point. Feng Hui quickly took out a pen and paper and wrote down the lyrics he had heard. He then compared the works of other mountain people with a few familiar faces and found that the styles were so similar. Tang Guo and Yin Yu songs were all written by her and Yin Yu songs. This was also a point that she deliberately buried, but she didn't expect it to be discovered by Feng Hui. So Miss Tang is Mr. Yamamoto. Su Chongqing finally came back from his dream. Something flashed in his mind and he suddenly widened his eyes. Then, he was extremely annoyed. Actually, I should have realized it long ago. He said something to the people around him. The others didn't know the content, but Tangguo heard it clearly. What Su Chongqing said was to get someone to help find her manuscript and a small piece of paper from before. Perhaps you have some doubts about the identity of the mountain man. I have arranged for someone to get the manuscript of the mountain man. Su Chongqing gave an apologetic look to Tangguo. Miss Tang, please write 2 words later. Of course, no problem. In fact, most people already believed her, but she had to show evidence to make it more convincing. She glanced at the crowd and found that the few people who used to scold her the most, except for Tang Yushu, were all hiding in the corner. They didn't say anything, but they couldn't help but look at her. Some people had complicated looks in their eyes, while others still had resentment in their eyes. She didn't care about that. Anyway, their faces were very swollen. In fact, I brought 2 follow-up chapters of Troubled Beauties today. If you are interested, you can read them on the spot as an apology. The Summit. Chapter 40-59. After that, she found Su Chongqing looking at her excitedly and expectantly. But before he could speak, Fang Huai came up. Sir, I didn't know I could be the first person to read the article. Su Chongqing thought, damn, where did this brat come from? Poise, he was an outstanding chief editor. How could he argue with a junior? Of course. Tangguo took out an envelope from her bag. Inside was the manuscript she had brought with her today. She handed it to Fang Huai. Fang Huai took it with both hands and read it silently. Zhou Xian saw how excited Fang Huai was and how everyone present wanted to stretch their necks to take a look. He was very smug. These people probably didn't know that he was almost at the end of the story. When Xiaoguo finished writing, he would be able to read it, and they would have to wait for a few months. He was happy just thinking about it. Although there were several pieces of paper, Fang Huai finished reading them in a short while. Su Chongqing quickly took the letter, afraid that someone else would beat him to it. Fang Huai looked at Tangguo expectantly, as if to say, what's next? Why isn't it out yet? Tangguo smiled faintly and didn't say anything. The scene was still very quiet. Their eyes were mostly on the letters in Tangguo and Su Chongqing's hands. Su Chongqing sighed when he saw the handwriting. If he had been more careful, he might have discovered the identity of the mountain man. But he didn't expect that short line of words. Who would have thought that the mountain man was her? Perhaps everyone present here would have thought of this. You can't be from the mountain man. How can you be from the mountain man? You're just a singer. Tang Yoshu's voice was very loud in the quiet tea party, and only his voice could be heard. He looked at Tangguo almost crazily. While cursing, he read the poems and articles published by the people in the mountains. He read them with all his emotions and indignation. Needless to say, everyone was also moved to tears. But after he finished reading, he scolded Tangguo for being unworthy and advised her to get out of here and not insult the name of the mountain man. This made many people dislike him. About 20 minutes later, the person who went to collect Tangguo's manuscripts came back. Su Chongqing showed everyone the manuscripts that Tangguo had brought today, as well as the manuscripts that had been kept at the news agency, as well as the line about severing ties. No one doubted his identity as a mountain man anymore. However, Tangguo still showed her handwriting and lyrics on the spot, so no one doubted her anymore. She was so talented and dazzling that they couldn't compare to her. Ha ha ha. How could you be from the mountains? Tangguo was stunned. He looked at Tangguo in a daze. Then, he suddenly tore up all the newspaper clippings. I heard that he is Sir's younger brother. Sir went to Xianles to sing in order to support his 3 younger siblings. I'm also aware of this matter. They rely on Mr. for everything they eat and wear, but they despise Mr.'s status as a singer. When you went to a tea party for the first time, they looked down on you in public. They said that you didn't want to hinder their future, so they broke off their relationship with you in the newspaper. It was only a short sentence, which shows how kind you are. It was Mister's eldest brother who finally cleared her name and revealed the truth to the public. There are many people who look down on the identity of a singer. I think anyone can look down on Mister, but the three of them can't. I'm their classmate. I used to think that their family was well off. Later, when the truth came out, I found out that Mister paid for their food, clothes, tuition, and daily expenses. The Summit. Chapter 4060. Such an ungrateful person actually scolded teacher every year. It's better not to interact with such people. It said that teacher started learning halfway and is now a public class teacher in several universities. With such talent, if he was born in a good family, he might have been famous long ago. Teacher's progress was delayed by them. It's all thanks to teacher's tenacity. Normally, when faced with such trauma, how could he still show his talent? Ordinary people can't reach their current status with just a few teachers, right? Yes, teacher is really a peerless genius. Among the people present, no one dares to say anything bad about Tanguo. Even those who still hate her. What did they hate? They hated that the person they used to like from the mountains was actually the person they often scolded and hated the most. How could they not hate her? The news that Tanguo was from the mountains was a slap to their faces, and it was especially swollen. The tea party had shocked everyone. After the tea party, the news about the person from the mountains was overwhelming. The newspaper that Su Chongqing worked at only published the latest article from the person from the mountains. They had already made a statement that the person from the mountains was Tanguo. In just the morning, everyone in Haiqing knew who the person from the mountains was. This news was still spreading outside. Soon, more places would know that the person from the mountains was actually a singer. Countless people would definitely be shocked. This matter also led to another result. Countless students came to Tanguo's public class because of her reputation. They would rather lean against the window to listen. For Tanguo's performance, the small bench was already at the entrance. The huge venue of Xianles was packed. Qin Jingyuan said, "If I signed you for 20 years, unfortunately, there are no ifs," Zhou Xian said. "There's only 1 year left. After a year, Xiaoguo will go abroad with me to further his studies." Sigh. Qin Jingyuan was very regretful. His money tree was going to leave. However, many people would come to the place where the person from the mountains used to stay often because of this. Because of the person from the mountains, countless people did not feel that Xianles was a bad place. In fact, Qin Jingyuan was already planning to develop the Xianles into a place that even scholars would love to visit. In short, it was better to make it more elegant than before. Wu Feng also knew what was going on. She was not very cultured, but she had heard countless people's praises for Tanguo. She was a stubborn person. Not only did she not regret it, but she also cursed in her heart. Anyway, she felt that Tanguo was not good at all. Tang Yoxing's paintings had lost all their spirit and soul. Even when teaching students, he felt a little powerless. After the tea party, Tang Yushu was also unable to recover from the setback. He spent his days in the newspaper office and no longer had the passion he had before. He couldn't even write an article. In the past, he had written many articles that revolved around the theme of Shang women don't know the hatred of a fallen country. Tanguo was from the mountains. If he wrote such an article again, he would only be nailed to the pillar of shame and scolded. Even now, there were already some scholars who wrote countless articles criticizing the siblings for being ungrateful. Tang Si was shocked. That was someone from the mountains. Tang Yuhui, on the other hand, was very happy. As expected, his eldest sister was the most outstanding. Since she was so popular in Xianles at such a young age, she was naturally the best in other things. He couldn't help but think that if this family didn't drag his eldest sister down, not only would she not have to bear the infamy, she might have already become famous and be pursued by countless people. This was what his eldest sister should have. The peak. Chapter 4061. Tang Yuhui went to see Tang Si and the others. His intention was to teach them a lesson, to not look down on others, and to not be ungrateful people. Unexpectedly, before he could speak, Tang Si said, "Big brother, are you here to show off?" "You're here to condemn us," Tang Yuxing said. Tang Yushu continued, "After all, she's from the mountains. Big brother's heart has always been biased towards her. Now that the truth is out, of course he wants to see how miserable we are. What a joke, the person I admire from the mountains is actually her." In the future, he would not read articles about the people from the mountains. Tang Yuhui was disappointed. Were these people still not awake? Since that was the case, there was no need for him to say anything. A year later, Tang Gua and Zhou Xian went to study abroad together. Miss Zhou of the Zhou family, Zhou Ruoxue, also went with them. In addition, Fang Huai also followed. Tang Gua's withdrawal from Xianles became the regret of countless people. After she left for several years, the business of Xianles didn't decrease. On the contrary, countless people came to visit Xianles because it was a place where the people of the mountains used to live. Zhou Guan and old Madame Zhou still had conflicts, so they still lived in the old house. After Tang Si finished her studies, Zhou Guan ignored old Madame Zhou's objections and married Tang Si. The two of them lived in the old house. Old Madame Zhou was furious and said bluntly that Tang Si should never enter the Zhou family. Zhou Guan was so angry that he also said that he would never enter the Zhou family. Zhang Lanhue lived in the cracks and was often scolded by old Madame Zhou. Her life was torturous. After marriage, Tang Si did not have a good life. Without the support of the Zhou family, Zhou Guan did not have a proper job. His life was no longer a matter of sweet potatoes. She even fell out with Wu Feng over the marriage and said that she would never go. Until Tang Si gave birth to the child, Zhou Guan was still as carefree as before. Even after the honeymoon period, their relationship was not the same as before. Not only that, Zhou Guan was also obsessed with gambling. Tang Si felt that she had seen the life she was living now before. The debt collectors came. Tang Si hugged the child helplessly. However, she was stubborn and did not want to go home to ask for help. She could only endure silently as the debt collectors moved the things away. The headstrong Tang Si started to persuade Zhou Guan, but he didn't expect that Zhou Guan wouldn't listen at all. Old Madame Zhou knew about Zhou Guan's situation. She remembered that she had several outstanding grandchildren and finally sighed. Before he died, he finally did a good deed. He gave Zhou Guan's share to Zhang Lanhue and gave them a house. Even if Zhang Lanhue was unwilling, she had to leave with these things. "I'll leave the Zhou family to you. You've already separated from the family, so don't bother about other things. The Zhou family must not be involved in gambling." Old Madame Zhou closed her eyes tiredly. She was relieved to hand it over to her eldest grandson. He was the most outstanding successor of the Zhou family. Unfortunately, she did not know when her second grandson would come back. That Tang Guo was actually not bad, but it was a pity that she would not be able to see her. Zhang Lanhue took the money back to the old house and angrily told Zhou Guan about the old lady's decision. Zhou Guan helped to scold her for a while. Zhang Lanhue felt that she was doing well now, at least her life was much better. It wasn't until all kinds of debt collectors came to her that she knew what despair was. The inheritance that old Madame Zhou had given her had been squandered by Zhou Guan within 2 years. Tang Yuhui knew about these things. The reason why he did not interfere was because he was waiting for Tang Si to speak up. Only when Tang Si spoke up would she know that she was wrong. If he helped her rashly, Tang Si would only suck his blood and not learn her lesson. Other than that, unless Tang Si was about to starve to death, he would not help her. The Peak. Chapter 4062. Tang Si no longer had the youthful temperament of a female student. She didn't know why her life had turned out like this. Zhou Guan wasn't like this in the past. The times were completely chaotic, and it finally affected Haiqing. Many newspapers couldn't continue operating. Tang Yushu, who was already having a hard time, lost his job. Not long after, Tang Yoshing's standards didn't improve, and the school decided to fire him. Tang Yuxing didn't starve to death. He chose to help decorate the house and never scolded the people who used paintings to paste the wallpaper. For a bowl of rice, he bent his back. Life became more and more difficult. It was dark ahead, and their lives might be in danger if they went out. There were hopeless people everywhere. It was as if they could see the end of the days. It was dark, depressing, and hopeless. One day, Zhou Guan came back excitedly and told Tang Si that he was going to join the army. He said that he was going to be a grand marshal in the future. The Zhou family was just a business family. How could they compare to a grand marshal? Zhou Guan had this idea because the Zhou family was now under someone else's protection. He was angry. Tang Si supported him with both hands. But after Zhou Guan left, he never came back. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Tang Si felt that Zhou Guan was still alive. However, many people thought that Zhou Guan should be dead. Many years later, Tang Gua and Zhou Xian came back. After returning, Tang Gua threw herself into a new job. Today, she was still addressed as teacher. She came back with the latest knowledge and was welcomed by countless people. In this life, Tang Gua didn't get married, but Zhou Xian was always by her side. She received many honors. She was a painter, a musician, a writer, and a chemist. However, ever since she came back from studying abroad, she didn't sing a song, paint a picture, or write literary words. What she wrote most was probably experimental reports. She developed many drugs and solved many of the current problems. Her works in the early years were still remembered forever. Her works were even auctioned at sky-high prices in the future. Tang Si and the other two didn't apologize to Tang Gua, nor did they apologize to Tang Yuhui. It wasn't that they didn't regret it, but they felt embarrassed. They always cared about their reputation. Especially since they were living a miserable life, they didn't want to get close to Tang Gua. Tang Yuhui, on the other hand, had arranged for people to keep an eye on them. Seeing that they had no intention of apologizing, he only wanted to ensure their safety. People who didn't know how to admit their mistakes and repent, for the sake of their so-called face, how could he let such people live a good life? That would be too unfair to his eldest sister. They had brought all of this upon themselves. Wu Feng was not happy in her old age either. None of the 3 children she cared about the most were there for her when she was old. Tang Yuhui helped her with her food and clothing, as well as sending her off. Even when she died, Tang Gua didn't take a look at it. Tang Yuhui didn't ask for anything. In his opinion, if it wasn't for Wu Feng's teachings, how could his 3 younger siblings have grown up so crooked? The person who had made the biggest mistake was Wu Feng. She had set a wrong example for her younger siblings. I want to see her, Wu Feng said expectantly before she died. She finally regretted it. Tang Yuhui replied, she's busy with an experiment. This is related to the country. The experiment is very important, so she won't be able to come. Seeing that Wu Feng was about to leave, he didn't say anything harsh. In the past, her eldest sister Yaya had come to show filial piety to her, but she didn't like it. Now, she wanted to see her, but she didn't have the chance. Got it. Birth, books, and CC. Wu Feng opened her mouth, feeling bitter in her heart. Tang Yuhui replied patiently, I've already informed them. Why didn't they come? Wu Feng wanted to ask, but they couldn't. Wu Feng left. She didn't wait for her 3 most beloved children. When it came to her funeral, the 3 of them didn't come. The school bell, Margaret, went to the next world. She was looking forward to it. Ziyun, Margaret, you shouldn't look forward to it. Qi Shao, yes. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Margaret, get lost. Latest website, Peek. Chapter 4063. Margaret, I don't know if the school bell is here yet, I'm so nervous. Mo Yuntian, there's no need for that. Harold, the more you look forward to it, the more you won't get the result you want. Empress Dowager Qin, that's not necessarily the case. Perhaps Margaret can really see the school bell. Margaret, Empress Dowager Qin, are you nervous? Empress Dowager Qin, I'm not nervous. Margaret, new people have a good mentality. Empress Dowager Qin also doesn't have a good mentality. My time passes too slowly, only a few days have passed. Actually, in my heart, I'm looking forward to meeting the school bell. Marguerite also hoped that her time would pass as slowly as Empress Dowager Qin's, but thinking about it, it wasn't possible. Even if it was much slower than other worlds. If she could see the school bell after waking up, how great would that be? Qi Shao Margaret didn't say anything, she was probably dreaming. When Tang Guo woke up, she saw a forest of flowers and plants. In front of her, there was a guqin. The original owner should have been looking at the scenery and playing the guqin. Didn't the princess say that she would play the guqin? Why didn't she play it? Red Date sighed and said in a small voice, the princess has been wronged. How could the princess not be wronged? Since marrying into the king's palace, when had the princess not been wronged? She thought that His Highness was a good match, but after marrying into the king's palace for 3 years, the days that the princess could see His Highness could be counted on one hand. Not only that, she was also warned by His Highness's people, telling her to stay in the palace and not cause trouble. What are you saying? You can leave first, let me sit for a while. She had to accept the memories. From the words of this maid, she could feel that the original owner wasn't living well. Red Date wanted to say something, but she hesitated. Perhaps she knew her princess personality, so she didn't say anything and silently left. She said she left, but she didn't go far. She just waited at the door. Tang Guo leaned on the table and slightly closed her eyes, beginning to accept this world. After reading the story of this world, she almost laughed out of anger. The country she was in now was called Diqi and the country was surnamed Helian. She was now married to the emperor's 3rd son, Prince Ding, Helian Feng. The reason why he was called King Ding was because Helian Feng was an expert in war and had once won countless honors for Great Qi. He was almost invincible and had bravely repelled the small foreign countries that had invaded their borders. The original owner's identity was not simple. She was the daughter of the Princess Royal of the Beiwang Kingdom, which was on good terms with Daqi. She used to be Princess Yuan, but after the marriage, she was conferred the title of Princess Yuan. As the daughter of the eldest princess, Beiwang country was not weak. How could Great Qi be involved in this marriage? It was Diqi who proposed the marriage between the 2 countries, and it was the eldest princess's most favored daughter. As long as the original owner didn't want to, the eldest princess and Emperor Beiwang could refuse. After all, they didn't want their beloved princess to suffer. But the original owner had long heard of Prince Ding's bravery. As a daughter, she had long been curious and admired Prince Ding. At this time, even if she didn't have any feelings of love, she still had a good impression of him. In order to see King Ding's true face, she decided to come for a political marriage. If Prince Ding was the same as the legends, she would not be at a loss. Because of this, she had secretly come to take a look. Seeing Prince Ding's talent, how could she not be happy? However, how could the original owner expect that after the marriage, Prince Ding didn't even take a step into her room on the wedding night? Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations Peak. Chapter 4064. He only told the housekeeper to tell her that since she married into the manor, she would be the princess consort from now on and she would be given the dignity she deserved. The hidden meaning was that she shouldn't think about anything else. The host didn't expect such an outcome. She thought that since Prince Ding agreed to the marriage, he would naturally be satisfied with her. Of course, she wasn't satisfied and tried to meet Helian Feng. She was quite angry about this matter. However, Helian Feng was cold to her and didn't care about her. He didn't explain why he agreed to the marriage and ignored her. She was very angry, but she couldn't go back and make a fuss because of this. That would make Beiwang country lose face. The fondness she once had for Helian Feng slowly faded away. Perhaps she had accepted her fate and decided to stay in the manor. No matter what, she couldn't let Beiwang country be caught in the wrong because of her. Far away from her hometown and being welcomed by a stranger, the entire Prince Ding's manor was cold to her and she didn't need to worry about anything. This also meant that the manor was under Helian Feng's control and she was placed here like a decoration. As time passed, she felt depressed. 3 years had already caused her health to deteriorate. If nothing went wrong, the host's body would collapse in less than 10 years and she would die in the manor. However, something happened in the middle that made her unable to remain calm. Thus, she flew into a rage out of humiliation and had to make some wrong judgments and do wrong things. This matter sped up the speed of her being eaten as cannon fodder. Su Ruoyu, a transmigrator. The daughter of the Su family who was raised in another manor. When she transmigrated, she met the drugged Helian Feng and the two of them did that. After that, Su Ruoyu quickly left. As a transmigrator, although she felt very unlucky about this matter, she wouldn't be like the ancient women who wanted to die. She thought clearly and felt that Helian Feng's figure was good, so she had profited. Of course, she also knew that Helian Feng's identity wasn't ordinary and didn't want to provoke him, so she left in a hurry. Helian Feng who woke up was different. He arranged for people to search for Su Ruoyu's whereabouts. For someone like Helian Feng, he shouldn't be so passionate about a woman who had a brief relationship. After all, the host was a peerless beauty. This was the most important point in this world. Helian Feng didn't care about this marriage because he didn't care about any woman becoming his princess consort. Because he couldn't. Yes, Helian Feng couldn't get it up. When the other young masters were playing with women, he found his problem. He secretly invited countless doctors, but there was no effect. Gradually, Helian Feng stopped thinking about this matter. But to a man, this matter was almost hopeless. No matter how outstanding he was, he couldn't get the throne. It was because of this that Helian Feng was so passionate about war, showing that he didn't fight for anything. When the emperor and the ministers were discussing the marriage alliance with the Beiwang nation and asked who was willing, he stood out without hesitation and expressed his willingness. Because the person they went to propose marriage to was the original owner. In Beiwang country, she was very favored, even more than those princesses. Helian Feng felt that since he couldn't touch women, he might as well help his imperial father share his worries. Any brother that married the original host would have a lot of trouble. Just like that, the host had been tricked. Chapter 4065. If she knew that Hellion Foam was impotent, how could she have come to marry him? To put it bluntly, this was cheating. However, the original owner didn't know about Hellion Fang's impotence. She thought that Hellion Foam didn't like her or was afraid of her identity. He was afraid that she was here to find out information, so he didn't do anything and didn't dare to tell anyone about his condition. Moreover, Su Ruoyu ran away after the incident. Hellion Foam looked for her like crazy but still couldn't find her. However, after tasting the taste of being a man, how could he bear to be a monk? While looking for Su Ruoyu, he even tried with other women, but the results were not ideal. He had no feelings for other women at all. Therefore, he could only arrange for his confidants to secretly look for Su Ruoyu's whereabouts and develop a strong interest in this woman. When Su Ruoyu returned to the capital, the two met accidentally, got to know each other and fell in love. Almost every time they met, Hellion Foam couldn't help but pull Su Ruoyu into the room to discuss life philosophy. Su Ruoyu was also an open-minded person. Since they had already done it once, it didn't matter if it happened a few more times. Moreover, the two of them were very harmonious and she quite liked this man. After knowing Hellion Fang's identity, Su Ruoyu wasn't surprised. She already felt that this man was not ordinary. When Hellion Foam said that he wanted to take her as his side consort, she rejected him. She made it clear that she could be with him, but it was impossible for her to enter the residence as a concubine. She also said that she hoped to be a couple for the rest of her life. Hellion Foam was surprised by Su Ruoyu's thoughts. He didn't expect this woman to be so extraordinary. No wonder she could fascinate him. Not only was he not angry, but he was even more interested in her. It was impossible to let Su Ruoyu go, but he didn't want this woman. A seed was sprouting in Hellion Fang's heart. He listened to Su Ruoyu's words. Su Ruoyu was actually engaged to the Prime Minister's son, Ji Changqiu. It was said that she came back this time for the engagement. Whether it was Su Ruoyu's sisters, the mistress of the Su family, or Hellion Foam, they didn't want Su Ruoyu and the Prime Minister's son to continue the engagement. They all wanted to break the engagement. Su Ruoyu also wanted to break it, but she couldn't think of a good idea at the moment. Not only that, but the Prime Minister's son also inadvertently found out about the relationship between Su Ruoyu and Hellion Foam. The Prime Minister's son was actually a sickly person, but he had no feelings for Su Ruoyu. After knowing about this matter, he did not care much. After all, he did not have many days left to live. Hellion Foam even told Ji Changqiu that he hoped Ji Changqiu would annul the engagement and hide what happened today. Su Ruoyu thought that if Ji Changqiu obediently annulled the engagement with her peacefully, she might be able to treat him. However, this Prime Minister's son was not afraid of anything. He said bluntly, "I have no objections to canceling the engagement." Ji Changqiu didn't tell anyone about this secret, nor did he say that he was going to publicize it. Hellion Foam and Su Ruoyu thought to themselves, this won't do. Su Ruoyu was skilled in medicine. Together with Hellion Foam, they came up with a plan to trap the Prime Minister's son, leaving him speechless. What did Su Ruoyu do? First, she concocted a medicine and asked Hellion Foam to secretly give it to Ji Changqiu. This medicine could temporarily make him impotent. Then, Hellion Foam ordered people to go to the tea house that Ji Changqiu frequented and arranged for two women to seduce him. He then asked the women to deliberately expose the Prime Minister's son's impotence. For this reason, the two women even drugged Ji Changqiu. Even though he was drugged, there was no reaction. Peak. Chapter 4066. This time, the Prime Minister's son, Ji Changqiu, became a joke in the capital. Naturally, the engagement was cancelled. Moreover, he couldn't say that Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng had an affair. Because no one would believe it. They would only think that he was desperate and wanted to bite Su Ruoyu. However, Ji Changqiu couldn't bite them. His body wasn't good, and because of the stimulation of medicine, he couldn't get up from his bed and died not long after. The Prime Minister couldn't accept this and secretly investigated. He found that his son's death was related to Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng. Thus, he became the villain of this world and attacked the two of them. As for the host, she found out about Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng and couldn't help but target Su Ruoyu. Helian Feng wasn't a good person. He was someone who would do anything to achieve his goals. After having Su Ruoyu, he couldn't stand the host. However, he couldn't let the host die without knowing her identity. Thus, he followed suit and found someone to set a trap for the host. He arranged a man for her. Although nothing happened, the host was caught in public. The host and the man were sleeping in the same room. Just like that, Helian Feng completely eradicated the original owner of the body and could marry Su Ruoyu. The host's reputation was ruined and she lost face in Beiwang country. Beiwang country also said that they couldn't accept her and let Helian Feng do whatever he wanted. She was sent to the nunnery. However, things weren't over yet. On the surface, Beiwang country couldn't take her back. However, the Emperor and Princess Royal were secretly worried. How could they not know their beloved niece's personality? They secretly arranged for people to look for the host, but it was too late. The host had already burned herself to death. The people she cared about would definitely not give up on her. If she continued to live, it would most likely cause a war between the two countries. Moreover, it wouldn't be justified. She chose to sacrifice herself and end everything. Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng were naturally together. In the end, Daki's emperor even passed the throne to Helian Feng. The two of them lived a happy life. Dear host, isn't it exciting? The system asked secretly. You met two whore who want to set up a monument to their chastity. While reading the plot, the system couldn't help but complain. It couldn't help but send an email to 222,111. He was very diligent in communicating with the other two Tongzi, and they would share some strange plots when they were free. Helian Feng really disgusts me. What the hell is he? That was what Tang Guo thought after reading the entire plot. This is a selfish man who cheats people into marriage. Yes, this is called marriage fraud, the system said seriously. Dear host, Margaret is waiting for you to show up. Because this was an ancient plane, Tang Guo thought about it in her mind and found that there was no Empress Dowager Qin here. She understood that this world should not be Empress Dowager Chen's world. It was a little regretful, but he didn't care too much about it. She would go when it was time. She had experienced a world, and Empress Dowager Qin had probably only spent a few days there, so she was not in a hurry. Campus bell, everyone, I've arrived at a new world. Margaret, oh, so it's not a magical world. If you didn't ask me, then it wasn't. If it was, the plot would definitely mention me. After all, the entire continent knew that the dark magician Margaret was a powerful and dangerous person with a strange temper. Whoever messed with Margaret would not have a good ending. The Peak. Chapter 4067. Margaret, you can continue. I'm just complaining. Campus bell, this is an ancient world. Margaret, oh, it's not Empress Dowager Chen's world, right? Otherwise, she would definitely be called Empress Dowager Qin. Okay, go on. Campus bell, indeed, it's not Empress Dowager Chen's world. I didn't find anything about her in the plot. She's currently in Daki. There's no Empress Dowager or concubine with the surname Chin. Empress Dowager Chin, this can't be forced. When fate allows, we'll naturally meet. Qi Shao, sister, let's talk about the plot first. Campus bell, okay. Tang Guo briefly explained the plot. As expected, there was a heated discussion in the group again. Of course, they were scolding Hellion Feng for being shameless. Empress Dowager Chin, there's actually such a ridiculous thing. Hellion Feng doesn't deserve to be a member of the royal family. He doesn't treat his illness and just wants to ruin a good girl's life. That transmigrator is also a scumbag. How dare she do such a shameless thing? Isn't this stealing? She's even married into the prince's mansion as a princess. Doesn't the Daki state preceptor have any manners? Margaret, calm down. I suspect you'll be so angry that you'll stand up. Empress Dowager Chin, I don't think so. I tried just now. Qi Shao, that prime minister's son is quite unlucky. Because he found out the secret, he didn't promise to keep it a secret and was schemed against. Ziyun, sister, I think this Ji Changqiu can be used. I have all kinds of medicine here. Do you want to find a chance to cure him and take him for your own use? Mo Yuntian, there are people in Beiwang who love you. Sister, why don't you tell them to come over and take over Daki? Empress Dowager Chin, when war breaks out, the people will suffer. If there's no war between the two countries, I don't recommend starting a war. This is not because I'm afraid, but for the sake of the world's stability. Once war breaks out, not only Daki will be affected, but Beiwang will also be affected. However, the campus belle could use Hellion Feng's erectile dysfunction as an excuse to make a big deal out of it. She could get the Beiwang country's envoy to come over and demand an explanation. The Diqi country would be in the wrong. Not only would they receive compensation, but they would also embarrass the Diqi country. This would cause Hellion Feng to lose the support of the people and lose face. In the dark, the school belle could devise other plans. In short, this matter had to be solved with wisdom. The school belle's enemy was Hellion Feng, that transmigrated girl, and the prime minister's son that Ziyun had mentioned. They could indeed make use of him. If they worked together, they could make Hellion Feng and the transmigrated woman unable to make a comeback for the rest of their lives. Mo Yuntian, that makes sense. After all, the mortal realm is different from the immortal realm. You can't always fight. Yungu said that fighting often is a waste of money and manpower. It's not good. Empress Dowager Chin has a good idea. If something like this happened in the future, Empress Dowager Chin should express her thoughts more often. Empress Dowager Chin, I've received a lot of help from everyone, so I should come up with some ideas. School beauty, I also agree with Empress Dowager Chen's idea. I also want to do that. Tang Guo stayed in the group for a long time before she left the group and returned to reality. Princess, are you sleepy? Do you want to rest in the room? Perhaps Red Date noticed that Tang Guo had been holding her head without moving, so she came over to check on the situation. Seeing that she had closed her eyes, she didn't dare to disturb her. She waited until Tang Guo opened her eyes before she spoke. No need. Come with me for a walk. The Diqi country was still considered liberal. It wasn't a problem for a woman to go out. Of course, as a princess, she would take a sedan or a horse carriage when she went out. She wouldn't really walk on the ground. When she left the residence, the people in the residence wouldn't stop her. Perhaps they knew that she wasn't causing trouble, so the people who were watching in the dark withdrew. Sitting in the horse carriage, Tang Guo calculated. At this moment, Hellion Feng was at the holiday home. He should have met that transmigrated girl, right? Also, that Ji Changqiu, how was she going to poach him to her side? The Peak. Chapter 4068. Dear host, Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng have met. On the second day of her arrival in Deqi, Tang Guo was taking an afternoon nap in a daze when she heard the system's voice. Do you want me to broadcast the scene? System, are you infected with a virus? Why are you talking like a pile of yellow trash? System, unexpected disaster. Notify me when they return to the capital. Keep an eye on them and don't relax. If the two of them didn't return, she didn't know what to do. Oh, she could first notify Beiwang country. Tang Guo woke up and returned to her room. She sent her personal maid, Red Date, out. She took out a puppet paper cut and used a knife to cut her finger. She dripped a drop of blood into it. Just as she was about to have the puppet paper cut transform into a human, she hesitated. She thought to herself that it would be better if it turned into a carrier pigeon. Transforming into a human was too big of a target. Although the martial arts experts of this world might not be able to catch the paper puppet, it would be a great target. If Prince Ding's people discovered it, it would arouse Helian Feng's vigilance. The puppet paper cut responded to Tang Guo's thoughts and turned into a carrier pigeon that didn't look like a carrier pigeon. It had light gray feathers and stood obediently on the desk. Tang Guo decided to write a letter and have the puppet carrier pigeon deliver it to Beiwang country's Princess Royal, who was her mother. This letter mainly conveyed a few meanings. First, she had been tricked into marriage by Helian Feng. However, she had to figure out whether this was Helian Feng's personal action or a plot by Deqi. She told the Princess Royal and the others not to act rashly and wait for her news. She also told them not to send anyone to contact her. However, they could secretly send people to disguise themselves as peddlers and stay in Deqi's capital. Second, regardless of whether or not it was Helian Feng's personal action, she would be in the wrong if she made a fuss about it. Helian Feng's impotence could only be one of the reasons why she would divorce him. She still had to find a reason to restrain Helian Feng or Deqi's lifeline. Third, she sent her regards to the Princess Royal and her emperor uncle. She told them not to worry and that she would protect herself. In addition, she told them that if they wanted to send her a letter, they could use the carrier pigeon to help. There definitely wouldn't be any problems. He folded the letter and passed it to the puppet carrier pigeon. The puppet carrier pigeon swallowed the letter. Not to mention how fast the messenger pigeon puppet was, its strength was not weak. If it was discovered and struck down, the messenger pigeon puppet would die and the letter inside would be destroyed. Come to think of it, this thing was quite useful. Tang Guo walked to the window and released the puppet carrier pigeon. The carrier pigeon first jumped onto the roof and hopped around. It didn't look like a carrier pigeon at all. The light gray figure quickly disappeared from sight and wasn't easily discovered. Tongzi, keep an eye on the emperor. As an emperor, I don't believe that he doesn't know about his son's impotence. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew that Helian Feng was impotent, given the suspicion of an emperor, would he have been so assured in handing over power to Helian Feng? She believed that the other princes did not know about this. If this matter was known by Helian Feng's brothers, they would definitely have vaguely spread the news long ago. After Helian Feng found out that he was impotent, he created a persona for himself. He wasn't interested in women. As long as he didn't want to, no woman could arouse his interest. This persona also brought him a lot of trouble. Those brothers who wanted to plant spies in his residence were very vexed. Peak. Chapter 4069. There were also some people who wanted Helian Feng to break, so they never gave up on the chance to drug Helian Feng. It wasn't that Helian Feng had never been tricked before. On the contrary, every time he was tricked, he didn't react at all. That was true despair. At most, his body would heat up and he would soak in cold water. After being tricked so many times, perhaps Hellion Fong wanted to see if there was any medicine that could really cure his illness. This time, Hellion Fong, who had been tricked at the villa, was planning to soak in cold water in the mountain spring of the villa. However, he met Su Ruoyu, who had also been tricked and came to soak in cold water. In the end, the two of them met. Hellion Fong had feelings for this woman who suddenly appeared. This world's heavenly axiom should be broken, right? Tang Guo said. What's wrong, host? It really took a lot of effort to arrange for the two of them to be together. That's right. If it was done in another way, whether it was Su Ruoyu or Hellion Fong, they wouldn't be together so easily. Maybe it's broken. Host, you can try to see if it can be fixed. I heard from 111 that the heavenly axiom of the 3,000 small worlds is incomplete and easily broken. This is because most of the 3,000 small worlds evolved from virtual worlds. Therefore, sometimes there are deviations, strange heavenly axioms, and even situations where the heavenly axiom itself is broken are very normal. Speaking of which, the establishment of the Space Administration is to help the 3,000 small worlds evolve and find out the flaws and fix them. So there's such a thing. At the mention of 111 and 222, Tang Guo thought of her wild brother, Tang Kuei, and 222's host, Tang Jiao. How is my wild brother? And Tang Jiao. Host, don't worry. Your wild brother is very good. In every world, he's an existence that kills everywhere. He was currently a tyrant in a modern world. According to 111, the original tyrant in that world had met a little white flower. For the sake of that little white flower, he laid his hands on his family and ignored the safety of his company. His parents were angered to death. After the plot ended, the tyrant suddenly realized that he had made an irreparable mistake. His strong obsession alerted the Space Administration, so your wild brother accepted this mission. However, this world has just changed from a virtual world to a real one. Perhaps because the female lead's halo is stronger, your brother Wild will occasionally encounter some small problems. For example, when that woman appears and is about to pounce on him, his legs might be nailed to the ground by the halo and he won't be able to move. When Tang Guo heard this, she was a little unhappy. Then the heavenly Tao must be retarded. It's too much of a dog. It actually bullied my brother. That's right. The heavenly axiom of that virtual world is a retard. Don't worry, host. Your brother Wild is very smart. Isn't he a boss? He had hired many bodyguards for himself, both in the open and in the dark. Whenever strange people pounced on him, they would be intercepted by those bodyguards. If he can't stop that woman, he has already instructed the bodyguards to carry him away. When Tang Guo heard this, she could not help but laugh. To be honest, she had never encountered a world that had just evolved from a virtual world to a real one and was so affected by the halo. Dear host, this idea of yours is a little dangerous. 111 just sent me an email saying that as they resist, the halo's influence on them is getting smaller and smaller. That female lead often breaks your wild brother's things. If it's a boss, he'll probably use his body to repay the debt or deepen the impression of the two of them. Peak. Chapter 4070. Then what did my brother do? Tang Guo felt that the result would be very different. Well, your brother Wild asked someone to calculate the damaged items and called the police. Ask the female lead to pay up quickly. If she can't pay up, send her to Africa to mine. But she's the female lead after all. Someone will definitely help her pay up. The system said happily, what happened over there is really too funny. Now the female lead is so touched by the supporting male lead that she was tricked by the supporting male lead to steal the documents of your brother Wild's company. The world's plot is probably about to end. 111 said that after she stole the documents, she will be sent to prison. Then what about Tang Jiao? Tang Jiao, a winner lying down. It's a pity for 222, this diligent and earnest little boy. No matter how hard he tried to persuade her to improve her professional skills, it was useless. Family Tang actually wanted to improve her skills, but after being entangled by a sticky monster, she couldn't do anything. I suspect that she collected the female lead aura. Help me see what the Prime Minister's son is doing. Tang Gua thought of this. How's his complexion? Okay, Madam Host. After a while, the system spoke again. The Prime Minister's son is drinking tea and reading. He's having a good time. His complexion didn't look too bad. Maybe his health is really not good. The people serving him are very careful, afraid that they will hurt him if they make too much noise. What is the Emperor doing? Let me see. The system's consciousness floated to the palace again. After a while, the voice came. It's a hard-working emperor. He's reading memorials. Okay, continue to monitor Helian Feng, Su Ruoyu, and the emperor. Right, pay attention to Su Ruoyu. What's up with her medical skills? Su Ruoyu showed her medical skills at different times. Most of the time, she took out some medicine. So Tang Guo wasn't sure if Su Ruoyu's medical skills were her own or obtained through other methods. Okay, Madam Host. On the other side, Su Ruoyu, who had met Helian Feng for the first time, saw Helian Feng sleeping next to the spring after waking up. She hurriedly put on her clothes and ran away. When she was running, Helian Feng's handsome face still appeared in her mind. Although she was a little upset about this matter, she also felt that she didn't lose out. Thinking about how she had actually been schemed against, her face turned cold. She thought to herself, who did this to me? Once I find out, I will definitely not let that person off easily. Not long after, Helian Feng woke up, but Su Ruoyu was no longer by his side. He recalled the charming scene from before and was momentarily dazed. Looking at everything around him, including the woman's hairpin, and her fragrance, he was finally sure that he had done it once. Recalling that feeling, he was somewhat addicted. A smile appeared on his handsome face. After putting on his clothes, he returned to the villa and summoned the shadow guards to look for Su Ruoyu's whereabouts. After searching for a few days, Helian Feng was already a little irritable when he still could not find Su Ruoyu's whereabouts. In these few days, he had also asked someone to arrange for other women, but he did not have any reaction at all. Finally, he was sure that whether he could be a normal man or not, he could only find the answer from Su Ruoyu. He vaguely remembered that Su Ruoyu seemed to have appeared in the spring with a red face. Most likely, she had also been tricked. At this time, Helian Feng mistakenly thought that it was some kind of drug that caused his reaction. The Peak. Chapter 4071. No matter what, finding Su Ruoyu would solve this problem. However, a month had passed and there was still no news of Su Ruoyu. Helian Feng had to return to the capital. He did not give up on finding Su Ruoyu. Coincidentally, the Su family in the capital had sent someone to bring Su Ruoyu to the capital because of the marriage agreement between her and the Prime Minister's son. She had fallen into a trap before, probably because someone did not want her to marry into the Prime Minister's mansion. Su Ruoyu was actually the first daughter of the Su family. However, Lord Su's first wife had died and he took a second wife in less than 2 years. The current matriarch of the Su family was this second wife. I heard that the Prime Minister's son is a sickly person. Su Ruoyu asked curiously. Shoub, Mississippi. The Prime Minister's son hates being called a sickly person. If he hears it, he will be unhappy. Su Ruoyu curled her lips. He is a sickly person. No one can say anything about it. Moreover, many people don't want this marriage to happen. In fact, I don't really care. Even if Su Ruoyu was a modern person, she was still thinking about her first man. Subconsciously, she was repulsed by the sickly Prime Minister's son that she had never met. She was still thinking about how to break off the marriage agreement. They had no feelings for each other at all. Such a marriage was meaningless. When she was about to arrive in the capital, Su Ruoyu was still thinking about whether she should find a chance to talk to the Prime Minister's son. She could help cure his illness and break off the marriage agreement. On the first day of Su Ruoyu's return to the capital, the system notified Tanghua. After returning to the Su family, Su Ruoyu fell into a wonderful life of fighting in the house. The system told Tanghua about the situation there every day. At the same time, he also knew about Su Ruoyu's medical skills. She had a space bracelet. In the bracelet, there was a thatched cottage, a spiritual spring, and 2 or 3 acres of black land. The medical book was obtained in the thatched cottage. It was said that it was left by a medical saint because he predicted that his disciple would appear here. So, it was left by a powerful cultivator. Tanghua extracted useful information. That's right. Otherwise, Su Ruoyu would not have learned so quickly. After all, she was not a professional doctor in the modern world. Learning medical skills is not something that can be done overnight. However, there were some special methods that could be learned quickly. Are there any cultivation techniques inside? Yes, but because there is no spirit qi in this world, the spirit spring in Su Ruoyu's space is not enough for her to cultivate. In addition, there were many cultivation techniques that used martial arts to enter the Tao, but in this world, they could not enter the Tao. However, it's still very easy to become a martial arts expert. The system said, the current Su Ruoyu's martial arts has improved very quickly. In just a short month, she has already become a second-rate master. From the looks of it, I still have to practice martial arts properly. Every time Tanghua went to a world where she could not cultivate, she would practice martial arts to protect herself. Under normal circumstances, people who practice martial arts were rather lazy. Most of the time, her status wasn't bad, so she didn't need these things. However, Su Ruoyu's progress was so fast that she couldn't fall behind, in case something happened. Su Ruoyu had the spirit spring and the black soil. The things she grew would definitely be extraordinary. In addition, she might even share the spirit spring and those martial arts manuals with Hellion Feng and the people close to her. In that case, Su Ruoyu was not so easy to deal with. He hurried to practice. Vertex. Chapter 4072. Fortunately, the people in the Wangfu have all seen Tanghua, this Wangfei, as an invisible person. Her courtyard was a little remote, so Red Date went to fetch her meals. The original owner didn't trust the people in the palace, so Red Date was the closest person to her. The servants who cleaned the courtyard quickly left after cleaning, not daring to stay. So when she practiced martial arts in the courtyard, no one would come to watch. She also asked the system to help monitor, so if someone came near, it would be discovered. The original owner knew martial arts, so Red Date didn't find it strange to see her practicing. But seeing Tanghua become more and more powerful, she was still a little surprised. Princess, your martial arts are improving so fast. Red Date also had some skills, after all, she was assigned to protect the original owner. The reason why she trusted her was because the eldest princess was kind to her family, so she was willing to serve the original owner for the rest of her life. This is the martial arts secret book Mother gave me. I didn't pay much attention to it before. But that day, I suddenly understood that thinking too much about some things is bad for the body. If something happens to me, Mother and Uncle will be worried. Red Date agreed with this and said with tears in her eyes, "Princess, you finally understood. If the eldest princess knows, she will be happy." She had always been worried that the princess would die of depression here. "Don't call me princess. What kind of princess do you think I am?" Red Date was very tactful and immediately changed her words. "Then this servant will call you little princess." N. Red Date, what do you think of the martial arts secret book I practiced? Of course it's good, it's much better than this servant's secret book. Now this servant is not sure if I'm a match for the little princess. Then you should practice too. In the future, when she beat the dog, she couldn't do it herself, so she let Red Date do it for her. System, the first cow has been successfully raised. Red Date was very grateful, but she didn't refuse. Although the secret book was precious, Daki was like a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. She had to become stronger to protect the little princess. Dear host, Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng met again. The Su sisters went to the temple to pray. They were looking for trouble with Su Ruoyu, but Helian Feng saw them and secretly helped her out. Now, they are sitting together drinking tea, and from Helian Feng's eyes, it can be seen that he can't hold himself back. But he can still endure it, probably because he doesn't want to scare Su Ruoyu. A few days later. Dear host, the Su sisters drugged Su Ruoyu again. What's funny is that Helian Feng actually sent someone to help, so Su Ruoyu couldn't escape and fell into the trap. Tanghua. This dog of a man, he really wanted to be a man so much that he went crazy. Su Ruoyu escaped, and then Helian Feng appeared in front of her like a savior. He carried her into the carriage, and then there was a scene that was not suitable for children. Tanghua, Tongzi, do you think you're still a child? System? System, ing. Tanghua, one punch for one monster. Ever since that time, Helian Feng and Su Ruoyu's relationship improved. The two of them would often meet secretly. Whenever they met, Helian Feng would pull Su Ruoyu onto the bed and do something else. In the battle between the Su sisters, Su Ruoyu finally gained the upper hand and gained Lord Su's attention. This was because she exposed her medical book and said that she learned it from an expert. Moreover, Su Ruoyu had opened a clinic. As long as she treated the patients, basically nothing would go wrong and they would be cured very quickly. Su Ruoyu tried to talk to Lord Su about canceling the engagement, but Lord Su didn't seem to agree. Su Ruoyu decided to think of another way. At this time, Helian Feng suggested that he could help her, and he also wanted to take her into the prince's mansion as a side consort. Su Ruoyu had already guessed his identity. She was actually a little sad and shook her head. "I won't be a concubine." Helian Feng frowned. He had already confirmed that only this woman could make him react, so he was determined to get her. But he didn't force Su Ruoyu, but secretly thought of a way to help her cancel the engagement with the Prime Minister's son. Su Ruoyu didn't refuse and had an intimate relationship with Helian Feng. The Prime Minister's son wasn't someone to be trifled with. As soon as Su Ruoyu returned, he arranged for someone to observe. Naturally, he noticed that something was wrong and found a suitable time to appear at the place where the two of them were done. Peak. Chapter 4073. Helian Feng and Su Ruoyu worked in a house on a lake. The lake didn't belong to Helian Feng, but the house on the lake was his. The two of them had agreed to swim on the lake together, but as they swam to the house on the lake. The Prime Minister's son was probably thinking that Su Ruoyu was still engaged to him, but they were together every day. Seeing that the Su family was busy with her marriage, he couldn't allow this. Even if he was a sickly person, he couldn't allow a woman like Su Ruoyu to enter the house. Actually, there was no such thing. He already had the intention to break off the engagement. He didn't want to implicate anyone with his broken body. Since the young lady of the Su family was back, he might as well clarify the matter and not delay her. The reason why this matter wasn't brought up was that Su Ruoyu had just returned for a few days and his men had already noticed her abnormality. First of all, Su Ruoyu's medical skills hadn't been investigated clearly, but she had secretly opened a clinic with Helian Fang's help. How could he not be suspicious? In order to find out what was wrong with Su Ruoyu, he wasn't in a hurry to break off the engagement. In the end, he found out that Su Ruoyu and Helian Fang were having an affair. He wasn't angry because he didn't have any special feelings for Su Ruoyu. The displeasure in his heart was real. If Su Ruoyu wanted to mess around, why didn't she break off the engagement first? She was using the title of his fiancé. If something happened, wouldn't it be embarrassing for the Ji residents? He secretly followed them this time to give the two of them a warning so that Su Ruoyu would be tactful and break off the engagement. As for publicizing this matter, he didn't think about it. He wasn't angry, but it didn't mean that his father, the Prime Minister, wouldn't be angry about this matter. This matter wasn't serious, and he didn't know if his body would be affected by it. Anyway, Su Ruoyu wasn't important. He should just break off the engagement quickly. However, Ji Changqiu didn't expect that the two of them would be so shameless and lose their lives. In the plot, he didn't mention this matter until his death. It wasn't because he was afraid of the Su family. Lord Su was only a third-rank official, and his father was the Prime Minister. There was no need to be afraid. He was worried about Helian Fang. Helian Fang was Prince Ding, the Emperor's favorite son. Although he didn't have any intention of inheriting the throne. However, no one knew what he was thinking. After some consideration, he decided to take this matter to the grave so that his father wouldn't have to worry about it. How could the Prime Minister be willing to accept this? Even though Helian Fang had dealt with the matter cleanly, he still managed to find out some information. His son had died so unjustly, how could he let the matter rest? In the later stages, in order to avenge his son, he almost went crazy. He used all kinds of methods and even communicated with enemy countries. There was no other way. Even the emperor was not on his side. He only had this one son. If it was not for his poor health, how outstanding would he be? If you can't get justice, what's the point of being loyal? His son had died so miserably and had to bear all kinds of curses. In his eyes, there was only revenge. In the end, his entire family was executed. Everyone felt that he deserved to die. At this moment, after Helian Fang and Su Ruoyu finished their business, they put on their clothes and came out of the house. The two of them still came out hand in hand, and there was some affection and ambiguity between their brows. Those who understood this would know what had happened. The duo, who were still laughing, suddenly sensed something, and they raised their heads to see Ji Changqiu sitting at the bow of the ship. Ji Changqiu was drinking tea. When he saw the two of them come out, his gaze landed on them. After the three of them exchanged glances, Helian Fang directly hugged Su Ruoyu's waist tightly. He wasn't afraid of what Ji Changqiu would do. Peek. Chapter 4074. He walked closer with Su Ruoyu in his arms and looked down at Ji Changqiu. Why are you here? Ji Changqiu didn't answer. His eyes were still on Su Ruoyu. He said lightly, Miss Su, since you're not satisfied with this marriage, why don't you cancel it first? After that, his cold eyes looked at the two of them. His meaning couldn't be clearer. Su Ruoyu blushed and grabbed Helianfang's hand. She really didn't want to be caught in this matter. I didn't want this marriage, Su Ruoyu said. I wanted to discuss it with you, but I didn't find the chance. Ji Changqiu said, today is a good time. Su Ruoyu's face paled again. She was sure that Ji Changqiu was here to make trouble. She even thought that he was unwilling and wanted to ask for something. No matter what, it was impossible for her to marry Ji Changqiu. I'll go back and discuss it with my father. Ji Changqiu nodded lightly. In that case, it's good. After that, he waved to his men. Seeing that the boat was about to leave, Helianfang said, you should know what to say and what not to say. Su Ruoyu also spoke at the right time. It won't do you any good to say this. If you agree, I could treat your illness. Just cancel the marriage. I don't care about the rest. Ji Changqiu's mouth was also poisonous. He clearly had a cold appearance, but the words that came out of his mouth made Su Ruoyu's face turn pale. I won't disturb the two of you. It's best to settle this matter as soon as possible. This young master doesn't want to bear a strange name. Ji Changqiu didn't promise to keep this a secret. Helianfang and Su Ruoyu didn't look good. They could only watch him leave. That white robe slowly disappeared into the thin mist, but the two of them felt as if a heavy stone was pressing down on their hearts. Su Ruoyu's heart was in a mess. Helianfang hugged her and comforted her. Ji Changqiu won't give up. He probably observed us for a long time and found evidence. Su Ruoyu said sadly. She didn't feel ashamed about this. It was just having sex with the person she liked before marriage. In her heart, she did not like Ji Changqiu. She was not the one who agreed to the engagement. She wanted to break off the engagement, and she would definitely break off the engagement in the future. Therefore, it was not a problem for her to find someone she liked. However, she knew that in Daki, if this matter was made public, it would be detrimental to her. These feudal people would drown her with their spittle. Don't worry. I won't put you in danger. Helianfang comforted her softly. I'll think of a way to make him unable to speak about this. Even if he does, no one will believe him. Su Ruoyu asked him what to do. Helianfang didn't hide anything and whispered in her ear. After hearing this, Su Ruoyu was a little surprised and hesitant. That's not very good. It's just a temporary rumor. It's mainly to prevent him from having a chance to speak. If we don't seize the opportunity, he will seize the opportunity and we won't be able to react in time. If is maliciously slandered, it will be more troublesome to deal with. The Prime Minister is a cunning old man. When the time comes, he won't give up until he rips off a layer of skin of the Su family. The Su family is not friendly to you, I'm afraid you will be implicated for the sake of reputation. The Peak. Chapter 4075. Moreover, when Ji Changqiu gets married and has children, this matter will be solved by itself. Su Ruoyu thought it was feasible and an idea flashed through her mind. Perhaps, I can also do something. I can concoct medicine that can temporarily make his body, the two discussed in a low voice. After a while, they discussed how to deal with Ji Changqiu. Ji Changqiu, who was about to reach the shore, did not know that he was part of their plan. Perhaps because he was about to break off the terrible engagement, he was in a good mood. Master, please get on the carriage. Ji Changqiu, who was in a good mood, was not in a hurry to return to the residence. He waved his hand at the attendant. Go to the tea house to listen to the storytelling. There's no hurry to go back. Yes. Ji Changqiu walked over slowly with two attendants by his side. His figure was thin, but he was tall and slender. He looked cold and handsome, but his face was very pale. At first glance, he looked like a weak master. Along the way, many people looked at each other. Those who often walked outside knew that he was the Prime Minister's son. Although they were happy to see him, they did not dare to approach him. Firstly, they did not have a high enough status. Secondly, they were afraid that if something happened, they would not be able to explain themselves. Tang Guo also came out and wondered. She knew that the Prime Minister's son had seen Su Ruoyu's embarrassing matter and thought that the plot was about to happen. She just came to the tea house to check out the situation. When the time came, she would not be discredited and would not know how to save him. Moreover, she had to cultivate the habit of going to the tea house to listen to the storytelling every day. When the time came, it would not be too abrupt to save the Prime Minister's son. She had been here for a few days, but she did not meet Ji Changqiu even once. Ji Changqiu only came a few times a month, mainly because his health did not allow him to come out. When the weather was bad, he would definitely not come out. He was afraid that he would accidentally get sick. With his body, if it was a little cold or windy, he would probably be bedridden. She is indeed a sickly beauty. Tang Guo sat in a small compartment in the tea house. She was here to listen to the storytelling. As a woman of the residence, she had to use a screen to block the storytelling. Host, the sickly beauty walked in. She is now in the small compartment next door. It's just a wall away. Are you nervous? Why should I be nervous? Tang Guo remembered that Ji Changqiu had bumped into Su Ruoyu today and asked, how did he look? He shouldn't have bumped into his fiancée having an affair, right? Even if the Prime Minister's son didn't like Su Ruoyu, as a man, no one would be happy to see such a thing. Dear host, you're wrong about this. Although the Prime Minister's son looks cold, I feel that he's in a good mood. There was a smile in his eyes as he sipped his tea leisurely. I heard that he didn't seem to care much about Su Ruoyu's matter. The system said weakly, perhaps I should say that he's a little happy. That's interesting. Tang Guo figured it out after a moment. He probably knew about the two of them. Now that he can break off the engagement and get rid of a hot potato, he's happy. Most likely. If it weren't for the great host, he wouldn't have been happy for more than a few days. This kid is quite lucky. As the system spoke, it scanned Ji Changqiu from top to bottom. Could this guy be the host's biggest cutie? He was happy when he bumped into his fiancée having an affair. It did seem like a big cutie. About half an hour later, the storytelling ended. Tang Guo was planning to go back. Coincidentally, Ji Changqiu was also planning to go back. The two of them walked out of the small compartment at the same time and met each other. They looked at each other and then quickly shifted their gazes to other places. The peak. Chapter 4076. Princess Ding. Ji Changqiu greeted. When Tang Guo came for the political marriage, many people knew her. Even Ji Changqiu had attended He Lianfang's wedding. This was Prince Ding. Normally speaking, Tang Guo shouldn't know Ji Changqiu. However, his reputation as a sickly person was very big. Therefore, he would attract people's attention no matter what occasion he was in. In addition, when she came for the political marriage, Tang Guo had attended Daki's poetry competition and met this sickly Prime Minister's son. Prime Minister's son. Tang Guo returned the greeting. Princess Ding, please go first. Ji Changqiu made way. Thinking of what happened previously, his eyes showed some pity. Princess Ding shouldn't know that Prince Ding was messing around outside, right? So pitiful. Tang Guo glanced at the other party's eyes. The system had been observing and couldn't help but say, "Host, I suspect that he is pitying you." That gaze almost didn't tell you that Hellion Feng was messing around. It's not certain who is the pitiful one. Tang Guo also showed a "you are so pitiful" look. This made Ji Changqiu a little confused. Tang Guo's pitiful expression disappeared. When Ji Changqiu wanted to chase after her, she had already walked out of the tea house and got on the carriage. Ji Changqiu frowned slightly. Princess Ding's expression was a little strange. After a while, he suddenly understood. Could it be that Princess Ding felt that he was pitiful because he was young and didn't have a long life? After understanding, Ji Changqiu didn't think too much and followed her out. He got on the carriage and said in a cold voice, "Return to the residence." "Yes, young master." Ji Changqiu didn't leave the residence often. He spent most of his time in the Prime Minister's residence to entertain himself. In addition, he was waiting for news from the Su family. He believed that Prince Ding would be able to help Su Ruoyu settle the matter of breaking off the engagement. He didn't expect that Hellion Feng would be able to settle this matter. However, the breakthrough was with him. After returning that day, Hellion Feng was thinking about where to set Ji Changqiu up. After thinking about it, the best place was the tea house that Ji Changqiu frequented. Ji Changqiu went to other places even less. He would only go to the tea house where one could listen to books a few times a month. What made Hellion Feng overjoyed was that Ji Changqiu had been going to the tea house more often in the past month. He had to visit Ji Changqiu every few days. He couldn't be too hasty in scheming against Ji Changqiu. First of all, Ji Changqiu had 2 bodyguards who were quite skilled. Even if they really drugged him, they might not be able to do anything to him. After alerting the enemy, it would not be so easy to scheme again. In order to be foolproof, he had to plan it perfectly. During this period of time, Tang Guo left the residence almost every day. Everyone in the residence knew that she was practicing martial arts in the residence. But the original owner knew martial arts, so it didn't attract anyone's attention. Someone from the prince's mansion even told Hellion Feng the news. Other than these 2 things, is there anything else? For example, who did you come into contact with? Hellion Feng asked. He was indeed worried that Tang Guo might pass on some information that would be detrimental to Daqi. That's not the case. If the princess consort isn't listening to a book, she's going to a jewelry store, or she's practicing her sword in the courtyard. She hasn't seen any strangers. Then there's no need to pay attention to her. Thinking about Tang Guo, who was invisible, Hellion Feng also thought about whether he should suggest to you, to bring her into the residence after this matter was over. However, he decided to wait. She couldn't enter the prince's mansion right after the engagement was broken off. It would be bad for her reputation. The Peak. Chapter 4077. Tang Guo's change didn't attract Hellion Feng's attention. Of course, he didn't intend to tell Tang Guo that he wanted to take Su Ruoyu as his side consort. It was useless even if he did. In this world, only Yu could be his woman. Yu was a gift from the heavens. Every time Ji Changqiu went to the tea house, he would meet Tang Guo. Their cubicles were next to each other. Gradually, he got used to this Princess Ding's hobby of listening to books. Many people knew that Tang Guo came to the tea house to listen to books. Thus, her appearance here wouldn't arouse anyone's suspicion. Host, Hellion Feng's people have made their move. After Ji Changqiu enters the cubicle, they will arrange something to lure the people around him away. His tea will be drugged. The drug is made by Su Ruoyu and it's very effective. It will take effect after drinking it. Then, they will arrange 2 girls from Floral Moon House to enter the cubicle and take advantage of Ji Changqiu. Then, they will find out that he is impotent. Helian Feng is really shameless. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to do this to let the sickly beauty know that Helian Feng is plotting against her, I would have let the fact that Helian Feng is impotent be made public first. Anyway, it's almost the same. Everything is going according to host's plan. Helian Feng's good days won't be long. After comforting her, the system asked softly, "Host, don't you feel that Ji Changqiu is very special?" "What do you want to know?" "It's that. Is he your cutie? I see that every time you greet him, you are quite friendly. I have calculated the time. Changqiu has been coming to the tea house more often this year. In the past, he would come 3 or 2 times a month. Now, he comes once every 3 to 5 days. The difference is quite big. System, you are obviously a system. Why do you like to gossip so much? You are almost becoming a gossip system." "Host, is he really a gossip system?" Tanguo couldn't help it, "You are still acting coquettishly." Host, the system dragged out its voice. Tanguo couldn't stand it anymore. Such a dog system, who did it learn bad things from? Yes. Looks like my guess was right. I'm getting smarter and smarter. Although 111 is a bit of a dog, this method of acting coquettishly is really not bad, the system secretly thought. Tanguo. It was another sunny day. Today was the day that Ji Changqiu was plotted against. The system had been monitoring Helian Feng's men. Right now, there was a waiter in the tea house that Helian Feng had arranged for last month. He had specially prepared this waiter for Ji Changqiu. Tanguo had arrived on time, so when the carriage stopped outside the tea house, she bumped into Ji Changqiu, who was getting off the carriage. Ji Changqiu also felt that it was a coincidence and nodded at Tanguo. Daki had a liberal culture, but it was necessary to avoid arousing suspicion. For the sake of their reputation, most people would greet the female members of the prince's mansion with their heads lowered. They would not speak too much to avoid any misunderstandings. But every time he saw Tanguo, Ji Changqiu couldn't help but reveal a pitiful expression. Princess Consort Ding was really pitiful. Prince Ding was fooling around outside with Su Ruoyu every day and she probably didn't know about it. It was a pity that most of the men in Daki had a large number of wives and concubines and drank wine with countless women. Although this matter wasn't glorious, it wasn't something that an outsider could meddle in. Tanguo also revealed a pitiful expression. This sickly young master was really pitiful. He was about to be plotted against, but he still had a happy expression. Ji Changqiu saw this expression and thought in his heart that Princess Consort Ding was indeed a kind person. She actually sighed that he wouldn't live for long every time. Tanguo went in first. Ji Changqiu waited for a while before following in. They were all regular customers and chose the small cubicles that they usually used. They were still adjacent to each other. Peek. Chapter 4078. The storytellers in this tea house were very popular, and the people listening to the storytellers in the small cubicles were all important figures. Most people would sit on the benches in the main hall, but there were also some people who came to join in the fun and stood there to listen. When the storyteller opened his mouth, the entire tea house quieted down. When the storyteller reached the most exciting part of the story, the crowd couldn't help but applaud and cheer. As Tanguo listened, her heart couldn't help but stir. She had a very special idea. "Host, I can feel that you're very excited. Have you thought of a way to prank people?" The system asked weakly. Every time the host thought of a way to prank people, it could feel a special feeling of excitement, and its energy would increase. The system was actually very proud. After communicating with 111 and 222, it found out that other systems wanted to level up according to the number of missions completed, or the host could give them some points. It was different for the system. As long as the host was happy, its energy would increase, and it would level up as fast as the flying sword. No. System, no, you're saying this to trick the system again. I just suddenly thought of a good idea. Tanguy smiled. Tongzi, what do you think of this storyteller? Very good. He's very good at making up stories and stirring up people's emotions. The system wasn't stingy with its praise, but it still didn't understand what Tanguy was thinking. Tanguy, what do you think of his story? For the people of Daki, the story is not bad. It's full of legends and fits the aesthetic standards of the people. However, for the host, it's very cliché. It's not fresh at all. That's a good analysis. The stories that this storyteller tells are generally divided into a few types. The first type is about demons and spirits. The second type is about a scholar marrying a lady from a noble family in high school and abandoning his wife. The third type is about ordinary people with a little suspense. For example, Mr. Zhang's chicken always mysteriously disappears. In the middle of it, people suspect that it's a demon or spirit. Later, they find out that Mr. Zhang did something evil and was being avenged. Basically, it's these three types. After hearing a lot of it, it's not exciting anymore. However, this storyteller's ability to make up stories is not bad. He can always capture people's emotions and make them unable to stop listening. In addition, Daki isn't like modern times, and there aren't many ways to entertain themselves. Therefore, there are many people who come to listen to books every day. So, what are you trying to say? It's nothing much. I just want to write a strange and exciting story and give it to this storyteller. With his speech, it should be able to attract a lot of people. System, it's definitely not a good story. Just write that there is a rumor that a rich young master has a hidden disease. How can such a shameful thing be made public? Therefore, the family members helped to conceal the rich young master's illness. Not only that, they were afraid of losing face if others found out the truth, so they arranged a marriage for this rich young master. This young lady's father is a good friend of the rich young master's father. The young lady and the young master can be considered childhood sweethearts. This marriage went very smoothly because this girl had long since given her heart to this man. It was only after the marriage that the young lady found out that the young master of the rich family had a hidden illness, and that he was not good in that aspect. However, the rich young master expressed that he truly loved her and had always kept himself clean for her. He didn't know that there would be a problem. Miss believed his words and felt that she had always liked young master. How could she not like him because of this small flaw? Vertex. Chapter 4079. System, I feel like there will be a twist in the plot. The two of them were in love for 3 years, but the girl never got pregnant. This caused a lot of discussion outside, saying that the girl couldn't have children. Some even scolded her secretly, saying that she was a hen that couldn't lay eggs. Many people persuaded the rich young master to take in concubines, but the rich young master didn't want to take in concubines because he loved his wife. This time, the hornet's nest was poked. The girl was cursed by all kinds of people, saying that she was jealous. She couldn't have children, but she was still occupying the toilet. Because the girl liked the young master too much, she endured the curses. Even her in-laws persuaded her, hoping that she could leave some face for the rich young master. The rich young master also showed a painful expression in front of her. The girl was soft-hearted and was willing to bear the curses. But after experiencing these things for a long time, her body became worse and worse. At this time, the young master went out to play and passed by a rundown temple. At night, he met a girl. A single man and a single woman, dry wood and blazing fire. Some things happened just like that. Why was the young master able to do it? So this girl was actually a demon. The reason why the young master could do that was because this demon used a demon technique. After becoming a real man, the young master felt how wonderful it was and insisted on bringing the girl home. When he returned home, his first wife, who was the girl, heard the news. It was like a bolt from the blue. She didn't dare to accept it. She wanted to stop this and ask for an explanation, but everyone scolded her for being jealous and not being able to tolerate people, not leaving an heir for the young master. The girl fell ill from anger, but that girl was still taken into the house. The girl wanted to clear her name, but that girl was pregnant, so no one would believe her words. After the girl's child was born, the girl died of illness. At this point, Tangwa didn't continue. System, what happened next, host? What happened next was that the young master's family members died one by one strangely. They all looked like they were sucked dry by a demon. Later on, an expert passed by and saved the dying young master. He even captured the evil demoness and a small demon. A few days later, the young master also went. Later, the expert revealed the truth to the public. This demon actually wanted to raise the child in her belly, so she hooked up with the young master. She originally planned to suck the young master's blood and leave, but she didn't want to be caught. In the end, the big and small demon were both killed. System, this plot is a bit ruthless. It's good to be ruthless. After all, it's a bad ending. Let the audience feel aggrieved and angry first, and then let them feel good at the end. Take care of the audience's emotions so that they won't get a heart attack. System, as long as host is happy. What else could he do? Of course, he stood by the host's side. Through the screen, Tangwa glanced at the storyteller in the hall. She listened to the storyteller reveal the stories one by one, causing the audience to cheer. She was very satisfied. The storyteller, who was originally telling a story, suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. However, his back was covered in cold sweat. He thought that he was sick. Dear host, Ji Chungcho's 2 followers have been lured away. Chapter 4080. The system said anxiously, host, it's your turn. The plot to save the sickly beauty is here. Don't worry. Have the women arranged by Hellion Foam arrived yet? System, they're almost here. Host, make your move. In a moment, those 2 women will touch the sickly beauty. Where did you learn these words? Go quickly, host. In a moment, the sickly beauty will be taken advantage of. That's your cutie. Are you willing to let others touch her? Red date, I left the peach pastry in the carriage. Go get it. Yes, princess. Red date didn't want to stay, so he left the small room. After Red date left the small room, Tangwa took out a puppet paper cut and dripped a drop of blood on it. She whispered, go set fire to the corner opposite the tea house. Don't burn down the tea house. Just attract attention. The puppet papercut didn't transform into a real person. Instead, it quickly jumped out. Everyone was listening to the storyteller attentively, so they didn't notice it. At this time, Tangwa heard a voice from next door, what are you doing? Ji Chungcho's voice was very weak, but she could hear the anger in it. Tangwa felt that it was about time. She hurried over and walked into the small room. She saw 2 gorgeously dressed women with their hands on Ji Chungcho's shoulders, revealing charming smiles. Young master, your face is so red. Young master, do you feel uncomfortable? Don't worry, we will help you immediately. After speaking, the two women were about to untie Ji Changqiu's belt. At this time, Tanguo threw out 2 small silver ingots and hit the two women's sleeping acupoints. The two women's eyes rolled back and they fainted. Ji Changqiu, who was originally incomparably angry, saw the sudden change and was somewhat stunned. The Prime Minister's son doesn't look too good. Where are the people around you? Tanguo asked with concern. System, just pretend. Ji Changqiu had already sensed that there was something wrong with his body. He had probably been schemed against. Between the flashes of lightning and the roar of thunder, he only thought of 2 people. If he had to say who he had offended recently, it would be these 2 people. On top of that, Su Ruoyu's medical skills were miraculous. It was highly possible that she had given him such a strange medicine. Not only did he drug him, but he also arranged for 2 women to seduce him. No matter how smart Ji Changqiu was, he couldn't figure out why. Could it be that he just wanted to prove that he was a playboy so that he could take the opportunity to break off the engagement? No, there were countless playboys in the capital who indulged in debauchery. Even if he was caught with 2 women, he would at most be called a romantic. If the engagement was broken off because of this matter, it would be a big fuss in Daki. Suddenly, Ji Changqiu felt something strange in his body. His face sank. He had been drugged with more than one type of medicine. He already understood the other party's goal. The other party didn't want to prove that he was a playboy, but wanted to use these 2 women to tell the entire capital that he was not good enough. Even though Ji Changqiu felt that Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng were disgusting, he did not expect them to be so vicious. Fire! Fire! Prime Minister's son, there's a fire. Why aren't your people back yet? As Tanguo spoke, she hid the 2 prostitutes under the table. With the tablecloth blocking, if one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't know that there were 2 people here. Ji Changqiu looked at her actions with some praise in his eyes. Peek. Chapter 4081. They are most likely coming back soon. Now that the crisis had been resolved, Ji Changqiu's heart was slightly relieved. Something must have happened outside. Ding Princess Consort, please leave quickly. It is not safe to stay in the tea house. Where are the people around Ding Princess Consort? They went to get the walnut cake for me. I don't know how big the fire is. Ding Princess Consort, please leave first. The Prime Minister's son's face is very ugly. Ji Changqiu coughed twice. Because of the stimulation of the medicine, his body was indeed very uncomfortable. It's an old illness. Ding Princess Consort, don't worry. Please leave first. If people saw the 2 of them in the same room, who knows what kind of discussion they would have. Those 2 people wanted to scheme against him. He could not implicate others. Tanguo took out a porcelain bottle and handed it to Ji Changqiu. This is the medicine I brought from Beiwang. I hope it can relieve the Prime Minister's son's pain. Tanguo opened the porcelain bottle and placed the mouth of the bottle beside Ji Changqiu's mouth. Smelling the fragrance, Ji Changqiu was slightly stunned. He forgot to refuse and was forced to take a mouthful of medicine. But after the medicine entered his mouth, it actually made his body feel better. At least, his coughing lessened and his breathing was not as difficult as before. Tanguo closed the porcelain bottle and stuffed it into Ji Changqiu's arms. She turned and left the small cubicle. Just as she left the small cubicle, Ji Changqiu's 2 attendants came back sweating. Seeing Ji Changqiu's appearance, they knelt down with a thud. Get up. Ji Changqiu's voice was filled with anger. This time he was schemed against. He was too careless. He could not blame these 2 people. He thought that he was sick and no one would come to touch this bad luck. Let's go back first. Ji Changqiu looked under the table covered by the tablecloth, catch the two people under the table. No matter if they could get evidence or not, they could not let them go. They must find some clues. Because of the fire, the customers in the tea house were slowly evacuated. Red Date also hurriedly ran in. Tanggua just happened to walk to the door of the small cubicle. Red Date quickly came forward and Tanggua followed her out. The customers in the hall had all left. The customers in the small cubicle were almost all gone. Tanggua stood by the side of the carriage and watched for a while. She saw Ji Changqiu being supported by two attendants. The two attendants even shouted, "Young master is having a fit. Please make way." Tanggua didn't know how Ji Changqiu managed to turn his red face pale, but the way he was sweating really scared the people around him. When Ji Changqiu was being helped into the carriage, he glanced in the direction of Tanggua. He thought to himself, this time, he owed Ding Wangfei a favor. He didn't know when he could repay it. Ji Changqiu was even a little conflicted as to whether he should tell Ding Wangfei about Helian Feng and Su Ruoyu fooling around. Sitting in the carriage, the attendant asked with concern, "Young master, how are you? I've already arranged for someone to call for a doctor." "It's fine." Ji Changqiu wasn't too worried. He didn't know if the effects of the medicine were temporary or permanent. He was a sickly invalid. It didn't matter if he could do it or not. With his body, how could he still think about the matters between men and women? Besides, he wasn't interested in those things. Especially after seeing Su Ruoyu and Helian Feng's ambiguous appearance, he was even more repulsed. He always felt that it was a little disgusting. System, young man, you can't be too sure of your words. It's easy to screw up. How did it catch fire out of nowhere? It's a good thing that the fire wasn't big. It seems like it only burned a tablecloth. Red Date returned to the carriage and told Tanggua the news he heard. Chapter 4082. That's good. I asked the shopkeeper if this place will still be open tomorrow. Yes, we didn't lose anything. We just disturbed the customers. However, the shopkeeper exempted the customers' tea. Tanggua nodded. Then she would send a story to the shopkeeper tomorrow to make up for the shopkeeper's loss. That story should make the teahouse's business very good. Then let's go back. Helian Feng most likely arranged for people to keep an eye on this place. She just didn't know if he knew that his plan had failed. The carriage slowly went to Prince Ding's residence. Tanggua lowered her head and thought about what to do next. Ji Changqiu should have guessed that the person who schemed against him was most likely Helian Feng. What would Ji Changqiu do? Would he endure it and not act up like in the original plot? No, of course not. Ji Changqiu wasn't the kind of person to endure silently. Otherwise, he wouldn't have deliberately interrupted their embarrassing matter. In the original plot, he knew that he didn't have long to live and didn't want to burden the Prime Minister. That was why he didn't pursue this matter. In addition, his reputation was ruined. No matter how he defended himself, he was powerless. Now, it was different. The conspiracy had been exposed. She even gave Ji Changqiu a bottle of medicine. Although it couldn't cure him, it could make his body much better. His condition wouldn't worsen because of this matter. She should go back and write the story first. She should first tell the story of the impotent rich young master to this tea house. It was more important to let this story spread widely. When Helian Feng's matter was exposed, everyone would easily connect the dots. The ancient people were sometimes very smart. Their ability to gossip wasn't inferior to the modern people. "Doctor, How is Changcho's body? Hearing that something happened to his son, the prime minister who was in the office didn't care about anything else and hurried back. His colleagues were very understanding. After all, the prime minister only had one son. He was outstanding, but he was sick and didn't seem to have long to live. Father, I'm fine. Don't worry. The prime minister's face turned cold. How can I not know how your body is? You can't even walk steadily. How can you be fine? This matter can't be let go. No matter who schemed against my son, they won't have a good time. After the doctor took Ji Changcho's pulse and confirmed that his condition didn't worsen, the prime minister's face looked better. Ji Changcho frowned. It seemed that there was something wrong with Su Ruoyu's medicine. The doctor didn't find any other problems with his body. However, he did not intend to make this matter public. Since the doctor could not tell, it meant that Su Ruoyu's medicine was powerful. Even if he knew, he would not be able to concoct the antidote. Changcho, leave those two girls to me. I'll interrogate them and make sure they confess everything. The prime minister narrowed his eyes. Who was it that dared to bully his son? Don't think about living. Father, I'll personally interrogate that person. Ji Changcho stopped him. Anyone who fell into his father's hands would most likely be half dead. His father was good at everything, but when it came to him, he was especially irrational and extreme. It wasn't that he pitied the two women who wanted to harm him, but he was afraid that the people behind them would catch his father and treat his life like grass. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Changcho, recuperate well. I'm here for you. Father, I want to handle this matter personally. The prime minister frowned in disapproval. However, seeing that his son was in good spirits and didn't seem weak at all, and the stubbornness between his brows, he compromised. All right, I'll arrange more people for you. Do whatever you want to do. Don't be afraid even if it's the emperor. On the other side, Helian Feng and Su Ruoyu were hugging each other and sunbathing in the villa. When they heard that the plan had failed, their expressions changed. Got it. You can leave. Su Ruoyu grabbed Helian Feng. Will he discover anything? Don't worry. He won't be able to trace it back to us. Even if he suspects, it's useless. It's just that we've already alerted him. Don't think about scheming against him next time. Su Ruoyu bit her lips. Then I don't know when I can cancel this marriage. Don't worry, I'll think of a way. 5 days later, Tang Guo was listening to a story in a tea house. It was the story she had written. At this time, there were people outside the tea house leaning on the door frame, stretching their heads and ears inside. They were all there to listen to the new story. Peak. Chapter 4083. Speaking of which, when young Master Zhang returned from his trip, he passed by a dilapidated temple. It was raining heavily and he had no choice but to enter the temple to avoid the rain. That night, outside the ruined temple, it rained and thundered. Zhang Gongzi had been walking for a day and was tired. He fell asleep. After some time, he suddenly opened his eyes. The storyteller stopped. The crowd started to clamor and then, Continue, don't stop. You are such a bad storyteller. Why did you stop at the most important part? Hurry up and continue. This young master doesn't lack the money for the tea. If you continue, this young master will reward you. Seeing the crowd's excited reaction, the storyteller continued. In the middle of the night, young Master Zhang suddenly woke up from his sleep. He felt that something was wrong with the temple. He looked carefully and saw a beautiful lady at the corner of the temple. The lady's figure was delicate and beautiful. When she saw young Master Zhang looking at her, her almond eyes revealed a pitiful look. Young Master Zhang sympathized with her and asked the woman across the bonfire why she came to the ruined temple alone in the middle of the night. Princess, although I have heard this story many times, I still hate this young Master Zhang. After hearing it a few more times, I feel even more disgusted by him. Red Date gritted her teeth, and everyone in the Zhang family. In the end, none of them were left. They must have done too many bad things and received their retribution. Regardless of whether it was the people in the hall or the guests in the cubicles, after hearing young Master Zhang's story, they all cursed and scolded him. Those who scolded young Master Zhang were mostly women. Of course, there were men as well. Especially those who paid attention to etiquette and morality and were somewhat knowledgeable. After hearing this story, they even had the inspiration to write some scolding young Master Zhang for being an ungrateful, heartless man. If this incident happened to these men, they might have made the same choice as young Master Zhang. However, they did not suffer from this illness, so they would not think that they have the same character as young Master Zhang. Tang Guo said to the system, however, they scolded him so happily that they even wrote some scolding articles. In just a few days, almost everyone in the capital knew about this story. Even if Helian Feng reacted, he would not be able to stop this story from spreading. There are countless merchants coming and going from the capital, so this story might have spread to other places as well. System, I understand now. This matter won't erupt for the time being, but it will cast a shadow in Helian Feng's heart. Even if he didn't think there was anything wrong with Su Ruoyu, the seed of doubt would be planted in his heart. When their affair was exposed, even if young Master Zhang's story could no longer be heard in the tea house, people would still remember this incident. Smart. When the time comes, they will be dragged out and their corpses will be whipped. Even the emperor will be suspicious of Su Ruoyu. Not only Su Ruoyu, but the Su family and Helian Feng will also be implicated. Once the emperor suspects you, your days won't be so easy. The storyteller in the tea house was still telling the story of young Master Zhang. Waves of people left and came again. The manager of the tea house was going crazy with joy. A few days ago, there was a fire in the tea house. He thought that it would affect the business of the tea house, but he did not expect that the mysterious man was so powerful. The tea house was full every day, and he only needed to count the money. The one who was even happier was the storyteller. Whenever there was a wonderful part of the story, he would definitely pause, and there would be many guests who wanted to give him pieces of silver as a reward. Ding Wangfei. At this moment, there was a knock on the door of the small cubicle. Vertex. Chapter 4084. Red Date walked out to take a look and found that the person at the door was familiar. After thinking for a while, she remembered that this person was in front of the Prime Minister's son. Red Date was alert and asked the other party for the reason in a small voice. This is a letter from the young master. Would Miss Red Date please pass it to Princess Ding? Ji Chengqiu thought for a few days and finally decided to tell the truth to Tang Guo in the form of a letter. He made this decision because he remembered the day when Tang Guo helped him. Princess Ding was someone who knew martial arts. But when he saw her that day, she did not have any mediocre martial arts skills. She should be a martial arts expert. She was decisive in her actions and saved him from danger. She also gave him a bottle of medicine which was better than the one the imperial physician had given him. With such kindness, he knew that Prince Ding had done something despicable. If he did not tell her clearly, that would be too unkind. Also, he did not think that Princess Ding was stupid. Perhaps she had noticed something long ago but did not do anything for the time being. This could be related to the friendship between the two countries. Also, He had specially sent people to inquire about Prince Ding's manor and found a secret. After Princess Ding entered the manor, she had been living in seclusion. She did not even have a real relationship with Prince Ding. This made Ji Changqiu very surprised. But he was also a little happy. A despicable person like Prince Ding was indeed not worthy of her. She was Princess Yuan of Bei Wang country. She should know that Prince Ding had done something despicable. As for how she would solve this matter after knowing, it was not something he could decide. No matter if she solved it or not, he would not let Prince Ding have an easy time with his grudge against him. Red Date passed the letter to Tanghua. After Tanghua finished reading it, she passed the letter to Red Date. Red Date almost fainted from anger after reading it. She immediately wanted to go back and grab Prince Ding to give him a good beating. Her martial arts skills were not weak. Now that she had practiced the martial arts manual that Tanghua gave her, she was even more powerful than before. Anyway, she could casually enter and leave the manor in the middle of the night. The experts in the manor would not be able to find her. Don't ask her why she was casually strolling around the Wangfu in the middle of the night. Wasn't it because she wanted to see what Prince Ding was doing that he actually dared to neglect her princess? Princess, this person is too hateful. He actually dared to fool around outside behind the princess's back. And that daughter of the Su family, she is even more shameless. She is still engaged, yet she is fooling around with Lianqing. It is really outrageous. Red Date was so angry that his hair was about to stand up. The daughter of the Su family was originally engaged to the Prime Minister's son. I was just wondering why the Prime Minister's son would suddenly send a letter to the princess. Red Date gritted his teeth. By the way, since the Su family's daughter is so shameless, why didn't the Prime Minister's son expose her in public? Why did he send a letter to the princess first? Perhaps the Prime Minister's son found out that these two people have other questions. Tanghua pretended to guess. Red Date, I'll leave this matter to you to investigate. I heard that this happened not long after the Su family's daughter was brought back from the holiday home. I want to know when she had a relationship with Prince Ding. Princess, don't worry. Leave this matter to this servant. This servant will definitely dig up her ancestral grave. Tanghua smiled faintly. There is no need to dig up the ancestral grave. You only need to investigate if there are any abnormalities on the Su family's daughter. In addition, you need to verify whether the two are really having an affair. Yes, Princess. Red Date felt that it was not worth it. Her princess was a perfectly fine person. How could she marry a broken man like Prince Ding? Su Ruoyu was not low-key at all. There were too many abnormalities on her body. Peek, you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.